お前はどこまで見えている。俺の死に様か。
It all starts when the nine-tailed demon fox attacks Konoha. Minato and Kushina seal the nine-tailed demon fox in Gemini, and they just thought that it was already the end, when suddenly Akatsuki appear in front of them and kidnap the girl, Naruto. The parents of the children had no time to react, as they immediately disappeared into the darkness. After 2 hours, Minato and Kushina still couldn't get over the fact that their daughter had been kidnapped. At the moment, they were both lying in the hospital and cursing themselves for not being able to do anything to stop Akatsuki. The fourth Hokage, Minato, looked at his wife's sad expression and said, "Don't worry, we will definitely return it." After these words, she felt better at heart, but even these kind words could not make all the worries go away. In Akatsuki's lair. "Hey, Obito, explain why you took this baby?" Kisame asked, with displeasure. But not only he was interested in this issue, but other members of the organization also did not understand why. And unexpectedly for everyone, Obito grinned, saying, "She will be our trump card." But no one understood the meaning of his words, so Sasori asked for everyone, "What does that mean?" "And that means she's a new member of the Akatsuki now," Obito said in an indifferent voice. And silence gripped the room, and it would have continued until Pain began to ask, "What are you up to, Obito?" "Nothing special, I just want to use this girl to my advantage." "Interests?" Kakuzu asked, breaking into their conversation. "Yes, we will train her from childhood and bring her up as a member of the organization. Thereby in the future we will have not only a strong member of the organization, but also a spy. Plus, she is the daughter of the fourth Hokage, which means she must be very strong, meaning that she must be a genius." After long conversations, we still distributed the responsibilities: follow, babysit, a child, Conan train, currently teach to speak TD, everything possible, cook, Sasori walking and playing with a child, Daidara. All the others replaced those who were not there, they were on a mission. After this conversation, everyone went about their business. 4 years have passed since that fateful day. Naruko grew up a kind, caring, and cheerful girl. During this time, she became a beauty. Her golden hair was braided in 2 high ponytails, and her blue eyes radiated warmth. There were also 6 stripes on her little cheeks, 3 on each. And because of that, she looked like a little fox. The girl herself was dressed in short shorts, with a white t-shirt, on top of which was an orange sweatshirt. From the shoes she was wearing blue shinobi sandals. All these years, the girl has been training from morning to night so as not to embarrass her family, because she will never forget how everyone looked at her with a cold and indifferent look. It was only after a while that the Akatsuki members fell in love with her, although sometimes she played pranks, thereby causing a stir in the lair, but thanks to this they were never bored. Naruko considered Akatsuki her family, and she loved each of them. And then one of the usual days for her, a serious conversation was waiting for her. On this day, Tobi had to tell her the whole truth about her P.S. Since Minato and Kushina did not die, the Uchiha clan did not think about the uprising, thus Itachi did not kill anyone and their clan was alive. Plus, due to the fact that Naruto's parents were alive, he did not want to become a Hokage. At the moment, he wanted to surpass him and prove to everyone that he was the son of the fourth Hokage, and not a monster. Minato and Kushina tried to devote all 4 years to their son, but at the same time they were looking for their missing daughter. But despite the fact that Naruto was the son of the fourth Hokage, everyone in the village hated him, because part of the nine-tail was sealed in him, and the other part in Naruto. The only thing that comforted him were his parents, friends, and thoughts about his sister. His parents told him that when they were little, his sister was kidnapped. And then to return her to Konoha, he began to train. In Akatsuki Naruko, as always, I got up from my bed, got dressed and went to the kitchen. All my muscles ached because of yesterday's workout. I ate reached the kitchen. My whole body ached with pain, because despite the fact that I was called a genius, since at the age of 4 she could already walk, talk and think like a normal person, plus she could learn complex techniques in a few days, I am still a 4-year-old child. To my surprise, there was a pain in the kitchen. He sat at the table and drank tea while Conan cooked breakfast. As soon as I entered the room, they looked at me sharply. "Honey, you got up late today, did something happen?" Conan worried while preparing breakfast. Conan has been my babysitter since childhood, and it was she who took care of me all these years. She was like a mother to me. "It's okay, Conan, I just trained a little longer than usual yesterday," I said, calming her down a little. "Are you sure you're all right?" Payne asked suddenly. From his look and question, it was clear that he was also worried about me. "I told you, I'm fine. By the way, where is everyone else?" I asked. After my words, 3 more people entered the kitchen. They were Deidara, Haydn and Sasori. "Deidara, Sasori," I shouted, then hugged them. "You know, I recently learned new techniques for controlling dolls and detonating bombs," I said, bragging. "Well done," they praised me, after which they patted me on the head. They were about to ask me about the techniques, when suddenly Haydn interrupts them. "Damn. How to eat hunting," he said as he sat down in his seat. To be honest, I don't really like him, which is why we often quarrel. "If you want to eat so much, take a pot and make yourself breakfast," I declared, looking at Haydn's face, on which anger was visible. "Shut up, baby. Only you were not enough for my head," Haydn said in a loud voice. I was about to answer him when Payne interrupted our conversation. "If you don't stop right now, you'll both go without breakfast," he declared, still sipping tea. Then we both went quiet. After all, everyone knew that if Payne said so, so it would be. I sat down in my seat and waited for breakfast. When breakfast was ready, everyone sat down in their seats and began to enjoy the meal. Before I could take a piece in my mouth, Kakuzu, Kisame, and Zetsu appeared in the kitchen. I smiled in all 32 teeth and said, "Good morning," to which they smiled back at me and sat down at the table. When everyone sat down at the table, I began to tell what I had achieved in training. Everyone listened to me with interest, even the same Haydn listened to me, although he did not pretend to. After breakfast, I helped Conan wash the dishes and clear the table. I often helped her with cleaning, washing dishes, cooking, etc., so I didn't bother much to help her and left the kitchen. I was about to go to training when Payne stopped me in the corridor saying, "We need to talk, so come with me." Of course, without asking him any questions, I followed him. But I still wonder what Payne wants to talk to me about. After all, if he wanted to say something, he could just say it at breakfast. From this, we can conclude that he wants to talk to me about something important and does not want anyone else to know about it, or everyone else already knows about it, I thought to myself. As soon as we got there, I immediately remembered whose room this was. "This is Toby's room," I said, but Payne opened the door as if he hadn't heard me. We went into the room and the first thing I saw was Toby. He's sitting on a chair looking at us. I immediately threw myself into his arms without thinking, to which he also hugged me in response. Toby was like a father to me, we often played and trained together. But lately he has become too busy, which is why we hardly see each other. "Toby, why weren't you at breakfast? You told me yourself that you need to eat every day," I said, then frowned and puffed out my cheeks, waiting for an answer. "Don't worry, I've already eaten, because unlike some I get up early," he said, looking at my face. And now I was about to object, when Payne interrupted me. "Naruto, we need to talk to you about who you are." From these words, I realized that the conversation would be long and difficult. I sat on Toby's lap and started listening to their story. After the conversation, Naruto and I sat and stared at one point, trying to put everything into a single picture. But even after much thought, I still have questions. Why was I kidnapped? Who am I to Akatsuki? What do they want to do with me in the future? These were the questions that worried me the most. You probably have a lot of questions, but right now we can't answer them. The only thing you should know is that you are our family, so we will accept any decision you make. Toby said, interrupting my reasoning. But even after such words, I didn't feel any better. Most of all, I was worried about my so-called other family, because I always considered Akatsuki to be my family. I thought that I had no one else besides them. And here it turns out that I have a family that is currently looking for me. You probably want to see your family? Pain asked suddenly. I don't know. I answered uncertainly. I never thought about my real family. I said. After a short dialogue, a dead silence hung in the room. But it didn't last long. Conan abruptly entered the room. She understood from our faces what we were talking about here. She ran up to us, pulled me off Toby's lap and started hugging me hard and tight. Without hesitation, I hugged her back. There were tears in my blue eyes. I tried to stop them, but they just got bigger. Seeing me, the other members of the Akatsuki came out from behind the door and began to hug me. They could not do without hugs, and Pain and Toby. We all stood there and hugged, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's real or not, they have always been and will always be my family. Suddenly, everything went dark in my eyes. I woke up already in my room. The first thing I did was go to the mirror. My eyes were insanely red from yesterday's tears. I quickly took water treatments, got dressed and was about to go to the kitchen when Kakuzu came into my room. Kakuzu helped me to study the techniques of the earth, including the fear of earthly hatred, and invent new ones. I see you're already up, he said, coming into the room with a tray in his hands. To be honest, I was surprised that Kakuzu brought me breakfast, because he usually does nothing but tease me. I brought you breakfast, refresh yourself, Kakuzu said, placing the tray on the table. Where's everyone else? I asked. They're on missions right now, so we're alone in the lair right now. He answered my question. I see, I said with sadness in my voice. Don't worry, they'll be back soon. While you eat, then come to the training room, I'll teach you new techniques. Kakuzu encouraged me. Okay. I replied, smiling. After that, Kakuzu left the room, and I started eating. A bit after the conversation, Naruto fainted from overwork. We were all very worried about her, and we calmed down only when Sasori checked her condition and said she was too overworked, she had better rest for now. After his words, we breathed a sigh of relief. What are we going to do now? Kisame asked. He didn't communicate much with Naruto, but even so he was still worried about her. I don't know yet, but I have a few ideas, I replied. Which ones? Zetsu asked. Zetsu was Naruto's second babysitter. After he became Naruto's babysitter, a smile began to appear on his face more and more often. He treated her like a younger sister. I think it would be best to return Naruto to Konoha, I replied with sadness in my voice. The end of Obito. Why should we suddenly give them Naruto? What if something happens to her? Conan asked, unable to stand it. Obito is right, it would be best to return her to Konoha, Pain said, supporting Obito. Do you really want to give them Naruto, who considers us all her family? Conan shouted irritably. You know that we don't want to part with her, but do you really think that Naruto will be safer with us? Obito couldn't resist answering Conan's shouts. No, but I'm not happy about it, you know, but we don't have any other options, said Pain, interrupting. Everyone else at this time just watched their conversation, thinking about their own. There was silence in the room. And the first one who interrupted her was Conan, saying something that no one expected to hear. Then, I'm leaving Akatsuki. Everyone stood in mild shock, looking at Conan. Are you crazy? Do you want to leave Akatsuki? Haiden asked, looking at Conan. Yes, she answered affirmatively. Why? Pain asked her. Before meeting Naruto, I only wanted to take revenge on everyone so that they would know all my pain. But when I met Naruto, I remembered what it means to be a family. It was she who pulled me out of the abyss of revenge. She became like a daughter to me, so I don't want to lose her. Conan replied. Are you sure? Pain asked her. I'm sorry Nagato, but yes, I'm sure of my decision. The girl said in a quiet and guilty voice. Before Pain could say anything in response to her, he was interrupted by Zetsu. Then I'm leaving too. Suddenly he said, well, if Zetsu is leaving, then I'm leaving too, Sasori said, hiding his sly smile under a mask of indifference. Pain only looked at him with his own eyes, in which there was no understanding. You know, during this time Naruto has become a family for me, so I advise you to think about who Naruto is for you. Sasori expressed his opinion, addressing the others. What about our plan to change the world? Obito asked. I've already double-checked everything 1,000 times, and in each case we lose. Even if you resurrect the dead shinobi, or subdue all the tailed ones, we will still lose, Sasori answered him. After these words, everyone fell silent thinking about Sasori's words. After all, everyone knew that Sasori not only knows how to anticipate the moves of others, but can also calculate them. After much thought, the first one to break the deathly silence was Pain, saying, then how about we disband the Akatsuki? Everyone present was shocked. Not from the fact that the Akatsuki want to dissolve, but from the fact that it was proposed by Pain himself, who was in charge of the Akatsuki. Why do you want to disband Akatsuki? Obito asked him. To which he replied, Obito, you know perfectly well why, so why are you asking such questions? You're right, Obito said, smiling. Well, then, from now on, the criminal organization Akatsuki is disbanded. Pain said, of course, everything is fine, but what are we going to do now? Kisame asked. To begin with, I think we need to settle somewhere, otherwise it is impossible to be in this lair, noted Deidara, to which all the others agreed. After a long conversation, we decided to 1. Make citizenship in Konoha, 2. Earn some money to buy a house, and close 3. Make ourselves a little authority so that no one would think that we used to be Nukanins. Having distributed the responsibilities, they succeeded. Kakuzu stayed with Naruto. Deidara and Conan went to do citizenship in Konoha. Sasori, Pain and Kisame went to earn money, and Obito, Zetsu and Haiden went to seek authority. Naruto 2 months have passed since that day. After everyone went on missions, I didn't see them once. To be honest, I missed them very much. These 2 months I've been training for 3 hours a day every day. Of course I would like to train more, but Kakuzu has been saying all the time that a child like me needs to rest more. Which of course I resented him, saying that he was a bore. But after a small argument with Kakuzu, I had to agree, so after training I always wandered around, enjoying the rays of the sun and delicious smelling flowers. Well, after a short walk, we sat down to eat, but since Kakuzu is not strong in cooking, we ate ramen. But after a few days I got tired of him and so I had to learn how to cook. After the meal, I played with Kakuzu, then with friends, then with dolls, which Sasori made for me, and sometimes we just chatted on different topics. But most importantly, I met my first friend. His name is Kurama. He is a 9-tailed fox demon who is sealed in me. At our first meeting, I immediately became friends with him. Without realizing it, Kurama also became attached to me, so not only did I begin to perceive him as a family member, but he himself began to perceive me as a younger sister, and I, in turn, perceived him as an older brother. But I didn't have enough time that I spent with him in my subconscious. So without thinking for a long time, I started looking for a way to remove the seal from the cage. And after a week I managed to remove the seal, only, as soon as Kurama decided to try to get out of my subconscious, he was waiting for a not very pleasant gift. After Kurama came out, he took the body of a small one-tailed fox cub, which made him furious to put it mildly. But after a while he got used to it, and I started caring for him and feeding him delicious food. Even though he felt like a pet, he still liked my courtship and care. Before going to bed, he always told me moments from his life, thereby making me fall asleep, and I, in turn, combed his soft fur. The end of Naruto, and then the day came when everyone had to return from missions that lasted 2 months. A girl with blonde hair like gold was sitting in the kitchen, looking at the clock all the time. While the girl was sitting and looking at the clock, the little fox was lying on the next chair, and was fast asleep. When suddenly the sound of footsteps was heard, and people came into the kitchen. As soon as the girl saw the crowd of people, she jumped up from the table and ran up to them, strongly embracing them. "I've missed you so much," Naruto said happily. "We missed you too," Pain said, smiling. After his words, Naruto's heart felt lighter, but at the same time it strained me. Involuntarily, tears flowed from the girl's eyes. Everyone stood and looked at her, waiting for her to say something. "I thought you left me," Naruto said, wiping away her tears. Unable to stand it, Conan ran up and hugged me back. "Don't be afraid, honey, we will never leave you," Conan said affirmatively, hugging the girl even more tightly to herself. Her embrace is very warm, Naruto thought, hugging her back. She wiped her tears and said, "Come on. I'll tell you everything now." After these words, she took them to the table to tell them about what had happened in 2 months. "Naruto, I told you everything that happened in 2 months." They, in turn, sipping their drinks, listened attentively to me. I told them how I trained, how I met Kurama, and many other things. But before I could tell you, Toby interrupted me. "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have important news for you," he said. I was very angry that I didn't have time to tell them, so I started to get indignant. "Is there really something more important than my story?" I asked defensively. To which I quickly received an answer from Haydn. "Do you think the news that we are moving is important, Haydn?" Zetsu said, looking at him with fierce eyes. "And what?" "She'll find out anyway," Haydn said defensively. At first I didn't understand what they were talking about. Only after a few seconds of reflection I finally understood what they were talking about. There were sparks in my eyes, and I didn't hesitate to start screaming with delight. "Hurrah! We're moving!" My joyful cries made everyone's ears ache. And for the next few minutes they tried to calm me down. Only when I was calmed down, we continued the conversation about moving. After a long conversation, I happily went into the room to collect my things. "I wonder what our house will look like," I said. "I hope there will be a normal house there, otherwise I'm tired of these labyrinths," Kurama said with displeasure. "You're right, brother Kurama, by the way, but let's practice today," I suggested to Kurama. "No." Kurama answered my offer quickly and clearly. "Why?" I asked, not understanding his quick answer. "You still need to pack your things," the fox reminded. "Damn, you're such a buka," I said resentfully. After finishing our short conversation, I calmly walked to my room. First of all, of course, I started packing. I don't want to hear claims from Kurama. After collecting all the things, I decided to move them to my chakra storage so as not to drag them. After collecting things, I lay down on the bed to sleep. It was already 9 o'clock, but unfortunately it didn't work out for me. Seeing me as an Ustasha, Kurama's brother decided to tell me a story so that I would fall asleep faster. He does it perfectly, so after a while I fell asleep. In the morning I took water treatments, got dressed and went to the kitchen. In the kitchen I stood at the stove and started cooking. It smells delicious," Kisame said as he entered the kitchen, and then, "I'm still cooking," I said bragging, without leaving the stove. In response, Kisame only nodded approvingly. "Wow. I didn't think you could cook," said Deidara, coming into the kitchen. "Unlike some people, I don't blow up everything to hell," I answered, laughing a little. To which Deidara puffed out his cheeks and stared at me until he sat down at the table. When I sat down in my seat, I saw 2 more people behind him. It turned out to be Haydn and Sasori. "You know, and Deidara is right, I didn't expect breakfast cooking from such a little thing like you mocking about me," Haydn said. Ignoring his taunt, I continued to make breakfast. After a few minutes of cooking in front of the stove, I finished cooking and set the table. By this time everyone was already assembled and waiting only for me. During the meal, We were talking about different topics, when suddenly Conan asked me, Naruto, have you packed your things yet? Yeah, I collected them yesterday and even moved them to the chakra storage so as not to drag them. I replied, well done. Sasori praised me, ruffling my hair on my head, which made me involuntarily smile with my trademark smile. Well, if you've already packed your things, let's move out? Abito asked. Yes, I quickly replied with all my joy. Naruto, before going to Konoha, they started giving me lectures on behavior and so on. I decided not to interrupt to listen to the lecture until the end, because I didn't want to argue with everyone before sending. I already knew what they were telling me, but the latest news puzzled me, and the last thing, now you are not Uzumaki Naruto, but Akatsuki Naruto, our younger sister Tobi finishing the lecture. What? Why? I asked, not understanding. Think for yourself, if someone finds out that we are former members of the Akatsuki criminal organization, then not only Konoha will hunt for our heads, but other villages too. And you know, I don't want to die yet, Hayden answered for Tobi, who was obviously not in the best mood. I didn't think about it, I said, relying on Hayden's information. Do you really know how to think? Hayden asked, looking at me with his sly smile. I wanted to hit him for such words, but pain stopped me. In any case, we'll meet in an hour at the entrance to the lair, he said as he left the kitchen. I helped Conan clear the table and went to my room for the last time. When I reached the room, I lay down on a large mattress that stood in the middle of the room. Brother Kurama, please tell me about Konoha. I made a request to Kurama. A few seconds later, a small cloud appeared in the air, which almost immediately disappeared. Well, if I remember, Konoha is one of the strongest villages, said the one-tailed fox, coming out of the cloud of smoke. That's it? I asked, watching as the chicken climbs onto the mattress to decompose on it. Yes, you'll find out everything else when we get there, the fox replied, sitting comfortably on the mattress. Damn, and yet, what a buka he is. I thought to myself, looking at a small red ball of fur. Before I could blink an eye, there was a knock on the door. Naruto, let's go. Everyone is just waiting for you, and Kurama Kisame said, coming into my room. What already? Okay, we'll be right there, wait 5 minutes, I said, and then I started waking Kurama up. Brother Kurama, get up. Everyone is already waiting for us, I said in a loud voice, still continuing to wake him up. It was only after several attempts that I was finally able to wake him up. Stop pulling me. I'm already awake, the fox answered, yawning. Waking up a little, he abruptly climbed onto my shoulders. Now, I'm ready, let's go, as if commanding me, Kurama said. Of course, I wanted to take him by the collar and lower him to the ground, thereby telling him to walk by himself. But despite this desire, I know perfectly well that first of all it will be extremely unusual for me, because I have already got used to his soft fur on my neck and back. When I went outside, I saw that all the former Akatsuki members were waiting for us. They were all dressed in ordinary shinobi clothes, which suited them very well. Damn it. Well, what took you so long? I would have already managed to get to Konoha and back, Hayden commented, looking in our direction. I already wanted to tell him everything I think about how Zetsu meets in our dialogue. Can we go already? He suggested. Yes, yes. I can't wait to see our new home, Deidara said. He would have continued the dialogue about our new home if Pain hadn't interrupted him. Okay, since everyone's here, then he's going, Pain said. Yes, we all answered in chorus. I was already in position to start running, when suddenly big hands took me from behind. Kakuzu. What are you doing? I asked him, while he sat me on his back, and what is not visible? Am I taking you on my back, or are you going to run for a few hours? Keep in mind, we will not stop, he answered me. I just didn't say anything to his words, although I was already swearing at him in my head. Everyone else saw me on Kakuzu's back and went ahead of us. Damn, do you think we would have stopped for a few minutes? Nothing's going to happen. I was indignant to myself, so that no one would hear, although someone heard it. You know, I don't want to admit it, but Kakuzu is right, if you can run for a few hours. At the moment, your maximum is 1 hour, but I don't think we'll reach Konoha in that time. Kurama voiced his thoughts, in my head, so that no one could hear. Brother Kurama. Whose side are you on? I asked him. On yours, of course, but I don't want you to lie in bed all day later getting ready. The fox answered my question. Yes, you're right. I reluctantly admitted that I was wrong. Well, you see. Well, you get some sleep for now, it's a long way, Kurama advised me. I was about to object when I realized that I wouldn't achieve anything with this. So, without arguing, I fell asleep. Naruto. I woke up from the fact that someone was trying very hard to wake me up. Naruto. Get up, we've come, said the fox, still waking me up. Okay, I'm getting up, I said in a low voice so that no one would hear, but Kurama heard him. Get up. Or don't you want to see Konoha? Kurama began his provocations. Yes, I'm getting up already, I'm getting up. I opened my eyes and saw that I was in a clearing covered with flowers. Come on, they're waiting for you, said the fox, leaving the clearing. I got up from the ground and followed him. Approaching the gate to Konoha, I saw other members of the Akatsuki family. I came closer with Kurama to sign up. And who is this with you? Asked one of the shinobi who guards the gate to Konoha. This is our younger sister Akatsuki, Naruto, Tobi said. His words made me smile involuntarily. To be honest, I don't really like the surname Akatsuki, but the idea that we all share the same surname proves that we are a family. Yes, if we are not blood relatives, we are still a family. But we passed the gate. If someone didn't make a fuss, we would have been let in a long time ago, I thought to myself, looking askance at Haydn, who apparently has not calmed down yet. Entering the village, we saw the following picture. It was very noisy and crowded on the streets. Everyone was busy with their own business, someone was shopping, someone was in a hurry to work. Seeing this commotion, I smiled my trademark smile. Wow. How many people, I said, looking around the street, and what did you think? Konoha is one of the strongest villages, so there are not a few people in it, Haydn replied to my cries of joy. Okay, let's not linger here, we still have to inspect the house, Pain commented, smiling involuntarily. His words made me even more interested in what our house looks like. We walked around Konoha talking on different topics, or rather I talked, while others listened to me. Even Kurama, sitting on my shoulders, listened to what I was talking about. Before I could blink an eye, we had already reached our new home. The house consisted of 3 floors. The house was painted peach, and the roof was dark. But all this pales before the big red whirlpool, which was located on almost every part of the house. Later, I was finally able to get an answer from Pain. What does this whirlpool mean? As it turned out, this symbol was the coat of arms of the Uzumaki clan. But, unfortunately, this is all that I managed to scout out from him. Going into the house, a large corridor and stairs to the 2nd floor immediately catch my eye. Slowly, I began to inspect the house. The first thing I looked at was a fairly large kitchen, which was very clean. After examining the kitchen, and especially the place next to the stove, I went up to the 2nd floor. On the 2nd floor, there were more than 10 rooms, one of which was a bathroom. Yeah, apparently we'll have to take turns washing. The first thought came to me when I saw the bathroom. After examining the bathroom, I began to inspect the rooms. Having thoroughly studied each room, I realized that almost all the rooms had the belongings of their owners. As you can see, they were moved here a long time ago, and I was thinking, why are there not enough things for everyone except me? But it turns out that they have already moved their things. I thought, offended. Calming down a little, I went into the last room, which I had not yet entered. The room was very lit because of the large window. The walls were painted in my favorite color orange. And the bed is soft and comfortable. After looking around the whole room, I realized whose room this was and began to lay out my things. After I laid out all my things, I noticed that the room no longer breathes such emptiness and loneliness. Eat the sun. A woman's voice called from the kitchen. When I went down to the kitchen, I saw how other members of the Akatsuki family were enjoying their meal slowly. I put the food to kurama and sat down at the table, and also began to eat my own. During the meal we talked about a lot of things, but most of all I was interested in talking about their new job. I was very surprised when I found out that my whole family had become full-fledged shinobi. But that's not all, they were all taken to the ANBU. I was very happy for them, but at the same time sad, because now we won't see each other so often because of their missions. But they promised that once or 3 times a week the whole family would spend time together. Not wanting to lag behind them, I decided to do my own training in order to stand shoulder to shoulder with them in the future. After the conversation, I helped clear the table, took everything I needed and was about to leave when I remembered that I needed to warn others. Turning around, I shouted so that everyone in the house could hear me. The first rays of the sun make their way through the curtains into the bedroom, where a 4-year-old boy is sleeping on the bed. At first glance, you can understand that he is very popular with girls. The brunette would have continued to sleep if not for the loud voice of a woman coming from the kitchen. Sasuke. Get up. You'll be late for breakfast. The woman shouted. It was Makoto, the wife of the head of the Uchiha clan and Sasuke's mother. Okay, I'm getting up, the brunette replied to his mother's screams. After getting dressed and taking water treatments, Sasuke went to the kitchen, where all the other members of the Uchiha family were already waiting for the younger one. Sasuke sat down at the table and began to eat. They ate in peace and quiet. Everyone was thinking about their own. It was a common thing for them. Having eaten enough, Uchiha Jr. took all the things he would need for training and left. Usually, Sasuke would ask his older brother Itachi to train him, but he has an important mission today, so the brunette is training alone today. Sasuke, for training, I chose the 8th training ground, which no one goes to, so you can train calmly. After doing physical exercises to strengthen my body, I started training in taijutsu and ninjutsu. I trained for about 3 hours. Unable to withstand the load on my body, I decided to rest a little. After walking around Konoha a bit, I returned to the training ground. Returning from a walk, I noticed an unusual person at the training ground. In order not to attract special attention, I hid in the bushes and began to watch her. It was a girl my age. She was obviously training while I was resting. After examining her all over, I realized that she was very beautiful. Her eyes were light blue, and her hair was bright yellow like the sun. It was braided in 2 high tails. There were also 3 stripes on each of her cheeks, which made her look like a fox. She was dressed in an orange and white suit with blue inserts and blue shinobi sandals. While I was studying her, the girl began to deliver fast and strong blows to the training dummies. Wow. And she is very strong. I thought, having made a conclusion. I don't know why, but I couldn't look away. Her movements fascinated me more and more. Especially when she made sudden movements, thereby causing her hair to fly in different directions. I would have kept looking at her if she hadn't suddenly spoken first. Come out. I noticed you, said the blonde, pointing her finger at the bush where I was hiding. Without hesitation, I came out of my hiding place and walked towards the stranger. Coming closer, I began to examine her even more. But not only did I examine her, she also examined me with her blue eyes. Her gaze on me sent goosebumps all over my body. Hello. The blonde greeted me. When, hello. I replied, a little stammering with embarrassment. I looked away from her eyes to the training field, which was almost all broken. In the future, it's better not to anger her, I thought to myself, looking at the landfill. I couldn't look her in the eye. And all because of the fact that she looks at me with her charming gaze. My name is Naruto Yuzu. Akatsuki, and you? Naruto asked me, waiting for an answer from me. Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha. I answered her question by looking into her eyes. When she finally saw my gaze, she smiled in all 32 teeth. Well, since we've met, then let's be friends? Naruto asked me directly. I was a little surprised by her directness, but without hesitation I answered with a smile on my lips. Come on, hurrah. Then let's train together, otherwise I'm bored alone, my new friend suggested. I didn't refuse her and started training with her. Several hours have passed. During this time, we not only trained together, but also talked about each other. I told her jokes that boys my age said. To be honest, these jokes were very stupid, but she still continued to laugh and smile. I do not know why, but when she smiled, my soul became very warm. And so it went on until Naruto remembered that she was expected. I completely forgot. They're already waiting for me. Sorry Sasuke, let's meet tomorrow at the same time here to practice. Naruto said rather than asked. After collecting all her things, she said goodbye to me and ran away. As soon as I could no longer see her silhouette, I also packed my things and headed towards the house. All the time I was walking home, I was thinking about Naruto. For some reason, she did not get out of my head. Just the thought of her and a smile appears on my face, and my heart is pounding fast at this time. Yes, what's happening to me? This has never happened before. Why do I think only of her? I thought to myself. When I got home, I noticed that everyone was sitting and having dinner. Throwing my things into my room, I hurried to the table. Everyone was still sitting at the table and thinking about their own things. Unable to stand it any longer, I asked my Kachan the question I was interested in. Mom, what does it mean when you think about one person all the time and your heart races when you see her? I asked my mother. After my question, everyone was shocked. Itachi dropped his fork in surprise, and his father fell off his chair altogether. The only one who had a different reaction was my mother. She had joy on her face. What's with their reaction to her? I couldn't understand. When suddenly Kachan jumped out of her chair and ran up to me and embraced me. How happy I am for you, son, she said. I just looked at her blankly. Yeah, I didn't think that my younger brother would find his love before me, said my older brother Itachi. Love? What is he talking about? You understand, Sasuke, when a person falls in love, he thinks and looks only at her. Only, a person can stop loving his soulmate at any time, while she still loves him. But this does not concern our clan. As soon as a member of the Uchiha family falls in love with someone, he will never forget her no matter what. Someone calls it fate, and someone calls it a curse. But don't be afraid, we will always be with you and help you make the right decision, Kachan explained. Realizing what my mother said, my face lit up red. Do I really love Naruto? But we just met her today. How am I going to look her in the face now? What am I supposed to do now? I was going through the questions in my head. Then I told my family about Naruto. When I finished, Mom just started asking me more questions. After answering all her questions in turn, I was finally allowed to go to my room. After taking a cold shower, I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. A smiling Naruto appears before my eyes. At first, I tried to fall asleep without thinking about her, but in the end I gave up. I didn't think I could ever fall in love at first sight. It has been decided that in the future she will become mine, and for this I will fall in love with her more and more every day, I thought to myself before falling asleep. Naruto, a week has passed since our move. During these days, I have settled into the villages pretty well, and even managed to make friends with children my age. To my surprise, Sasuke Uchiha became my best friend. After our first meeting, we trained together every day, and sometimes he even showed me the village. It turns out he is a very good storyteller, especially if it concerns information about other clans or about the village. Waking up as always at 8 o'clock in the morning, I took water treatments, got dressed and went to the kitchen to cook breakfast. Since everyone except me goes on missions, I have to clean and cook. After cooking pancakes and setting the table, I wake everyone up with my loud voice, coming from the kitchen. Get up. Breakfast is ready. After my words, I heard the rapid footsteps of several people. By their screams and curses, it could be understood that they were Hayden, Toby, and Deidara. Running into the kitchen, they immediately began to argue about who came to the kitchen first. Well, just like children, by God. A thought flashed through my mind. Even though I knew that I was still a child myself, but unlike some people, I don't rush around the house like a madman. Hooray! I'm the first, which means today I choose what we have for dinner. Toby said happily, bragging to the others. On that I got murderous looks from Hayden and Deidara. Damn it. And I wanted miso for dinner tonight. Hayden was indignant, sitting down in his seat. His example was followed by the others. Sitting down in our seats, we began to eat. I haven't had time to take at least one piece in my mouth, when suddenly Toby asks me a question. Naruto, can you make tempura? And then I've been wanting to try it for a very long time. Toby asked me, looking at me with puppy dog eyes. Well, in order to cook it, I need shrimp and fish, which I don't have. Okay, then in the evening after the mission, I'll go to the store, just buy something sweet for tea. Toby made his conclusion. A few minutes later, other sleepy members of the Akatsuki family came to the kitchen. As you can see, they just woke up recently. Yeah, even I don't sleep for so long, and they're shinobi. Mentally laughing at them, I thought. Immediately sitting down in their seats, they began to eat. How delicious. Kisame commented without finishing everything. After his praise, others also started praising my cooking. After breakfast, everyone went on their missions, and I cleared everything off the table and went to the training ground. When I arrived at the training ground, I immediately noticed a brunette leaning on a tree. Sasuke. I called him back. The brunette saw me and smiled sweetly and went to meet me. Hello. Did you come earlier than usual today? Did something happen? I asked my best friend. Immediately after my words, a blush appeared on his cheeks and he said, just wanted to see you earlier than usual. Sasuke said, blushing even more. Seeing his red face, I decided to check if he was ill. Putting my palm on his forehead, thereby being in front of his face, I said, it's strange, there doesn't seem to be a temperature. Maybe I didn't have time to finish, when suddenly Sasuke began to shake his head in different directions, thereby forcing me to remove my hand from his forehead and said, I told you I'm fine. By the way, where's your pet? The younger Uchiha changed the subject. Are you talking about Kurama? He can be said to be resting today, as yesterday he worked a little too hard, helping me to carry groceries home. But this is not about that. And about then, let's train in taijutsu today, and then tomorrow in throwing shuriken and kunai. Sasuke said, interrupting. Damn, what's going on with him? At first, for no reason at all, he starts blushing, and then suddenly he avoids me. Only this thought was spinning in my head all the time. And so, after 2 hours of sparring in taijutsu, we decided to rest. Taking out the scrolls with food, I quickly prepared a place to rest and took out more hot food from the scrolls. During the snack, Sasuke and I talked about various topics such as the Shinobi Academy, which we will enter in 2 years, our future team, and so on. After eating, I put the empty scrolls in my backpack, meanwhile, as Uchiha cleaned the place of our rest. And when we put everything away, I was about to leave, when suddenly someone's hand grabbed me by the wrist. I turned around and saw Sasuke grabbing my wrist in front of me. Wait, let's take a little walk? The brunette asked unexpectedly for me to. Okay, I said uncertainly, looking at the hand that Sasuke was holding. After looking where I was looking, he immediately let go of my hand and blushed deeply. Without thinking about it, I turned around and walked towards the village, but realizing that I did not know exactly where the younger Uchiha wanted to go, I asked him, "Sasuke, where are we going to go?" After my words, the brunette smiled slyly and abruptly grabbed my hand and dragged me in an unknown direction. I don't know why, but I followed him without resisting. As soon as we came to some mountain, I saw a beautiful landscape that I had never seen before. The whole village was visible on it. And because the sun was setting, it gave the impression that Konoha was bathing in the rays of the sun. Wow. Beautiful. How do you know this place? Accidentally found it. A little blushing, Sasuke answered my question. After sitting on the mountain for a while, talking with Sasuke and watching the sunset, I remembered about other things that need to be done today. After saying goodbye to Uchiha, I left in the direction of my house. The end of Naruto was walking home, not paying attention to what was happening around her. She was thinking of something to surprise her family with. Passing by the training grounds, she was brought out of her thoughts by the sounds coming from one of the training grounds. The girl wondered who was training alone at such a time. Coming closer to the training ground, Naruto noticed a boy about her age. He was a blonde man with blue eyes. But from the observation from Delek, she could not see everything. Therefore, deciding to come even closer, the girl quietly hid behind a tree. Naruto began to examine the boy even more, noticing 6 stripes on his cheeks. She gave her exact verdict. Yes, he's an exact copy of me. How is this possible? Although, if you remember, Pain once said that I have a twin brother. Really, is that him? The thought flashed through the girl's head. From this thought, the girl became even more interested in getting to know her brother. But what if he doesn't want to accept me as his sister or even hates me? Only these thoughts stopped Naruto. And when the girl was about to leave, someone's voice stopped her. Who's here? And why are you following me? The blonde asked, looking at the tree behind which Naruto was hiding. After much thought, the blonde calmed down and still came out of her hiding place, showing herself. Hello. I'm sorry I interrupted your workout. I just heard sounds coming from here and I was curious who was training here at such a time. Coming closer, the blonde said, looking at a boy of her age, who was shocked at how much she looked like him. Deciding not to shock him with the news that Naruto is his sister, the girl turned around and was about to leave when the same voice stopped her. Wait, who are you and why do you look so much like me? The blonde man asked her directly. To what Naruto replied to him. I think you already know the answer to this question. And even if you don't know, then you'll know for sure soon. She said, and then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Naruto. After training, I went home. I was walking under the contemptuous glances of people passing by. But it didn't bother me much, because all I could think about was a stranger appearing out of nowhere. She looked so much like me. But why? I thought. I was thinking about it so much that I didn't even notice when I got home. Going into the house, I took off my shoes, the jacket that I was wearing and went to the kitchen. Hi, sunshine. Are you back yet? What's so fast? Did something really happen? The excited voice of a woman from the kitchen rang out. I went into the kitchen, took a cake from the refrigerator that was left after my godmother's birthday and was about to eat it, when suddenly a red-haired woman took the cake from me. What did I tell you? First dinner, and then sweets. First of all, and secondly, what happened? You came earlier than usual today. What happened in training? Come on, tell me. She said in an angry voice, releasing a heavy key. Her red hair was divided into 9 parts, and she showed me her fist, saying that if I didn't tell her, it would be very bad for me. Seeing the angry Kachan, I unconsciously swallowed and began to mentally curse myself. But despite this, I still found the strength and answered, It's okay Kachan, P. I'm just a little tired, that's all. After my answer, my Kachan's hair became the same and a warm smile appeared on her face. If so, then I'm calm. Sit down to eat. Minato will be coming soon too. She replied with a smile, as if nothing had happened. Yeah, it's better not to anger Kachan. A thought flashed through my mind. After that, at the order of Kachan, I sat down at the table. Then suddenly I hear the front door open, and a few seconds later a blonde man with blue eyes appears on the threshold into the kitchen. After seeing him, Kachan started getting mad at him. Minato, where have you been? You should have come 5 minutes ago. I'm sorry, I was a little late because I signed the papers. The blonde man justified himself. Okay, go sit down, we're going to eat now. With Kachan's permission, Minato walked to his seat at the table, not forgetting to ruffle my hair. Hi, son, how are you doing with training? What is it? He asked. It's all right, To-san. Today I decided to try out my new technique, which I recently created. I replied with a smile on my face. Well done, son. To-san praised me. While we were talking, Kachan had already set the table and we started eating. I ate quietly the way I was thinking about the stranger, and when Kachan and To-san finally finished discussing something, I asked them, Kachan, To-san, what does my sister look like? From my question, they sat with surprised faces. Why would you do that? To-san asked. Simple. I said, deciding not to tell them about the stranger. Well, she has the same blue eyes and bright yellow hair as you. Kachan told me. The same as mine? Yes, the same as yours. To-san replied with a sad smile. The same as mine means, was it really her? I thought and abruptly got up from the table. Naruto, what happened? The pitcher asked anxiously, looking at me. And? Everything is fine with me, it's simple, a little tired after training. I'd better go, thanks, it was very tasty. I said and went to my room. Going into the room, I lay down on the bed and fell asleep thinking about my sister. Naruto. 2 years have passed since meeting my twin brother. I haven't seen him since that day. I tried to find him, but it was useless. During this time, I completely got used to the village, made even more friends and acquaintances, but there were also disadvantages, due to the fact that my family could not pay much attention to me. Because of their constant missions, I had to stay at home alone for a few days. Because of this, I was lonely and bored, and if it wasn't for Ku and Sasuke, I would have done something stupid a long time ago. Therefore, in order not to be alone at home all the time, I sometimes spent the night in the ecchi house. They treated me very well there, as if they had known me all my life. Only, I don't know why Sasuke always behaved very strangely when I stayed at the ecchi house for the night. But I tried not to pay attention to it. And so, as always, I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Getting up, I made my temporary bed and went to wake Sasuke up. As yesterday, I stayed at the Uchiha again. Sasuke, get up. Mikoto-san has probably already made breakfast, now, he mumbled, getting out from under the blanket. I don't know about you, but I went to the kitchen. I said, leaving the room, thereby giving Sasuke to get dressed. Going into the kitchen, I saw almost all the members of the Uchiha family at the table. Naruto, good morning. Sit down to eat. Where's Sasuke? Is she still getting dressed? Sasuke's mom asked me, sitting at the table. Yeah, good morning to you too. I replied with a smile, sitting down with them at the table. And where is Itachi-san? I asked, seeing that Sasuke's older brother was not there. He's gone on a mission. Sasuke's father replied. After a while, Sasuke, who had recently woken up, came into the kitchen and sat down with us at the table. After eating and talking about the academy we have to go to tomorrow, Sasuke and I packed up and went to the training ground. At the 8th training ground, as always, it was quiet and calm. Having decided first to train in techniques alone, and then together in taijutsu, we started training. 2 hours later, when we had already finished our workout, we were lying on the grass resting from the workout. Naruto, I want to tell you something. The first one broke the silence of Sasuke. What? I asked, still lying on the grass. Well, before he could finish, someone's voice was heard. Sasuke. Naruto. Shouted a guy who looked about 10 years old. He had, like Sasuke, black hair and black eyes. It was Sasuke's older brother. Itachi-san, what are you doing here? I asked him. He came even closer to us and said with a smile on his face, I was coming back from a mission and saw you. After his words, Sasuke began to look at his brother with a dissatisfied look. Am I interrupting you? Itachi asked a little with a grin. Actually, yes. Uchiha Jr. didn't say enough. Because of their looks at each other, I thought that a fight might start now, so I intervened in their dialogue. Itachi-san, what time is it? It's almost 12 o'clock, why? He asked. I think it's time for me to go. All my family members are due to come today from their next mission, so I need to prepare food for them. I answered, getting up from the grass. By Sasuke, by Itachi-san. See you tomorrow at the academy. I told them last, after which, without waiting for an answer, I ran away from the landfill. When I ran home, the first thing I did was take some money and went grocery shopping. Having bought everything I needed, I headed towards the house. When I reached my destination, I went inside. I took off my shoes and jacket and went to the kitchen with the bags. Where have you been? One-tailed fox asked me when he saw me on the threshold of the kitchen. Ku? Weren't you supposed to go with Pain and Toby on an intelligence mission? I asked, not expecting to see him here, because everyone was supposed to come only in the evening, and now it's only day. Yes, but I came before the others because they were detained. Kurama explained to me. Okay, then will you help me cook dinner for everyone? I asked. Good. He said, and we started cooking dinner. I was cooking, and Ku was helping me. 2 hours later, everything was ready. Looking at the clock, which showed almost 6 o'clock in the evening, I thought, it's already evening, I think we should already set the table. If anything, the dishes will just cool down by their arrival. With these thoughts, I began to put food on plates. Meat, I love it. Toby's voice came from the hallway. Turning my head to the side from where this voice was coming, I saw a crowd of familiar people. Seeing familiar faces, I pounced on them with hugs. You're back. I was delighted, clinging to them even more. We are at home, Pain answered for everyone with a smile on his face. The rest of the time I spent with my family. We ate, discussing various topics, and when we finished eating, we sat down in the living room and still chatted carelessly. We talked for so long that we didn't even notice it was 9 o'clock in the evening. It's so late. That's enough for today. Let's go to bed. Conan said when she saw what time it was. Well, a little more. I tried to object. No. You actually have your first day at the academy tomorrow, so you need to get some sleep. Conan said. And it concerns you too. Go to sleep now. And not some night gatherings. Conan asked the others. What? Why? We actually recently came from a mission and are very tired. So we just need a little drink. Haiden objected. Kakuzu said, imagining what Conan would do to Haiden. Naruto, come on, I'll put you to bed, and they'll sort it out here. Sasori suggested, okay. I replied and went to my room. Entering the room, I quickly changed my clothes and got into bed. Sasori, in order for me to fall asleep faster, began to tell all sorts of stories. They were very interesting. But in the middle of the story, I did not noticeably fall asleep for myself and began to have sweet dreams. Morning. The first rays of the sun are breaking through the bright orange window curtains, illuminating everything around. A blonde-looking 6 to 7 years old sleeping peacefully on her bed had sweet dreams, when suddenly, for no reason at all, a loud voice was heard throughout the room, forcing her to distract from sleep. "Naruto, get up! Get up!" A loud voice was heard, forcing me to wake up. From such an unexpected rise, I abruptly jumped out of my bed and in the same second was on the floor. Damn. Coo. Why yell like that? I started to get indignant at the fox, standing on my elbows. "We have to get up. Or do you want to be late on your first day at the academy?" Kurama asked, sitting on the bed. "Okay, I'm getting up," I replied, getting to my feet from the floor. Getting up, I made my bed and went to the bathroom. After rinsing a little under cold water and brushing my teeth to shine, I went to the closet with clothes. I took all my clothes out of the closet and started choosing what to wear on my first day at the Shinobi Academy. "What about this kimono?" the fox suggested, pointing to an orange-colored combat kimono. The kimono itself was short, but thanks to the black shorts under the clothes, you could safely put it on. The kimono also had a wide black belt, which added elegance while not restricting movement. "Good idea, I'll do it," I said, putting the extra clothes back in the closet. Wearing a combat kimono, I began to look at myself in the mirror. Beautiful. Ku summed up with a smile, pleased with his choice. Yeah. I replied with the same satisfied smile. After looking at himself in the mirror a little more, my red-haired friend jumped on my shoulder with one jump and we went to the kitchen together. When we came to the kitchen, we noticed that Conan was diligently cooking something at the stove. "Good morning," I said, walking into the kitchen, drawing attention to myself. "Good morning, sunshine. You sit down at the table for now, breakfast will be ready soon," Conan replied, still cooking. I sat down at the table and waited for breakfast. "Where's everyone else?" I asked, remembering yesterday's scene. "They're still asleep, you can wake them up if you want." After these words, a sly smile appeared on my face. "You shouldn't have said that," Kurama commented, looking at my smile. I got up from the table, took a bottle of cold water, Conan cosmetics, which she rarely uses, and other things for practical jokes, and went to wake everyone up. In 10 minutes everything was ready. I stood in the middle of the corridor and started waking everyone up. "Get up! Get up!" I shouted, trying to wake everyone up. After my words, there was a loud shout to the whole house and bad words from the room where Haydn was. "What the is going on here?" Haydn began to be indignant, coming out of his room. His clothes were all wet and his hair stood on end. To be honest, I was holding back my laughter, but after the others came out all decorated from their rooms, I started laughing out loud. "So you're the little one arranged it?" More stating than asking, Haydn said, looking at me with a threatening look. But I, as if not hearing him, continued to laugh, while others, not understanding what was happening, looked at me with a surprised look. "What happened?" I heard a loud scream and Conan started talking when she came to us, but as soon as she saw the painted faces and the wet Haydn, she immediately picked up my infectious laughter. "Ha ha ha, you should have seen your faces," Conan managed to say, bursting into laughter. From her words, all those whom I decorated with cosmetics began to look at each other in surprise, and then they started laughing with us together. "Hey! And what do you care about me?" Haydn asked irritably, still in wet clothes. But still, after a few moments, he began to laugh at himself and others who were played in the same way. After having breakfast and putting ourselves in order, we all went to the academy together. Along the way, I was laughing and talking about how I managed to pull off the morning scene. We were so carried away by the conversation that we didn't even notice how we got to our destination. A crowd of people crowded around the academy. They were mostly children who were entering the academy this year and their families. "How many people?" Kisame said when he saw the crowd of people. "And what did you think?" After all, Konoha is known as one of the strongest villages. Who wouldn't want to enter the Hidden Leaf Shinobi Academy? Asked a rhetorical question to Kakuzu. You're right. Kisame replied. At the same time, a crowd of children and their families began to move actively someward. Come on, something's starting there, commented Deidara, pointing in the direction where the crowd went. Without hesitation, we began to follow the crowd. When we arrived at some flat area where others were already crowding, we noticed that a blond man with blue eyes was standing in the middle of the field. He was dressed in a shinobi uniform, in a raincoat on which it was written 4th and in a hat on which it was also written Hokage. So that's what my dad looks like, I commented out loud on my thoughts, but realizing that I just said I started to quickly correct the situation. That is, how many children of my age are here? And all of them will study with me? I asked, changing the subject. But it didn't work out for me the way others had already figured out what I was thinking. Don't be afraid, we will always be there, said Obito, to my surprise. Realizing the meaning of his words, I answered with a smile on my face, I know. After the Hokage began to tell a boring speech about shinobi, the academy, and so on. And finally, he began to announce the names of those who will study this year. By the way, before you go out, we have a surprise for you, Sasori added with a smile, reminding everyone else about the gift. Exactly, a gift. I forgot. Hayden said. Yes, you forget everything all the time. Conan replied, to which she received a displeased look from Hayden. Can it be enough? We would like to give Naruto a gift. Kakuzu said. After a few seconds of talking about my gift, Pain finally took my unforgettable gift out of his backpack. It was a black jacket with red clouds, exactly the same as the black raincoats of the Akatsuki organization used to be. If I remember, you once wanted to wear our raincoat, but even if the Akatsuki organization is no more, we were still able to make you a jacket with exactly the same pattern. Said Pain, giving me the jacket. Thank you. I answered with a happy smile and began to hug them. After a little cuddling, I put on my now favorite jacket. I like it. I summed it up. We are glad. Zetsu answered for everyone. After discussing my gift, I heard my former name called Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. The 4th Hokage announced. After his words, a blond man of my age came out of the crowd and headed towards the Hokage. After shaking his hand and saying something, Naruto went to the side where the woman with red hair was standing. That's him, my brother. Is he really going to study with me? A thought flashed through my mind. From this I began to worry, because I didn't know exactly how to behave with him. Don't worry, everything will be fine, said Kurama, who was on my shoulder, thereby supporting me. His words calmed me down a little. Yes, you're right, I replied and continued to listen to the Hokage. Uchiha Sasuke, the blond man said. A dark-haired man came out to his words, shook his hand and also left for his family without saying a word. Damn, are Uchiha always so emotionless? I asked in my subconscious. Unfortunately, yes, Ku replied with a hateful smile. I was about to ask why he made such a face, when suddenly I heard a familiar name. Akatsuki Naruto. Hokage announced me. I left the crowd, thereby showing myself, and went towards the Hokage. As I got closer to the 4th Hokage, I saw great surprise on his face. Not only because my red-haired friend was sprawled on my shoulder, but also because I looked exactly like the blonde himself. Naruto? Hokage squeezed out, looking at me. Hello Hokage-sama, I said with a smile, shaking his hand. After shaking his hand, I quickly left so that he wouldn't start asking me unnecessary questions. Approaching his family, Kurama abruptly jumped off my shoulder and sat down next to the others. Are you okay? Pain asked me anxiously, distracting me from the fox. Yes, I'm fine, I replied. After about 5 minutes, the announcement of the names ended and the children were taken to their classes, in which they will study for 6 years. And the parents and other family members of the child were left waiting on the street. Good luck! Everyone shouted to me. To which I just nodded my head and went to my class. Hi Naruto! Sasuke greeted me when he saw me in the crowd of other children of our age. Hi Sasuke! I answered, and together we began to discuss the academy in which we would study. While we were walking to the office, all the girls threw jealous glances at Sasuke and me, but I didn't attach much importance to this, so I also talked with Sasuke carelessly. When we came to our class, we were asked to choose a place where we would sit for all 6 years of our studies. Without hesitation, we decided to sit next to each other on the first desk. Sasuke sat down next to the window, and I sat next to him. Hello children, my name is Iruko-sensei, and from today I will be your teacher until graduation from the academy. The teacher introduced himself. Well, I suggest we all get to know each other first, and we'll start from the first desk. Iruko-sensei said, looking at Sasuke. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I'm 6 years old. I love tomatoes, my family, and someone else. Sasuke said a little quieter and squinted at me. I don't like annoying people. The goal is to become the head of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Jr. added. The next one, said the teacher and squinted at me. My name is Akatsuki Naruto. I'm 6 years old. I love my family and friends. I don't like betrayal. The goal is to become as strong as my whole family. I replied with my trademark smile. My name is Haruno Sakura. I'm 6 years old. I love. A loving look at Sasuke, the goal. A loving look at Sasuke. And I don't like Naruto, said the girl with pink hair, sitting at the second desk. I was slightly shocked by this statement. What did I do to her? We haven't even met before. I thought over Sakura's words while Sasuke looked at her with a contemptuous look. While I was thinking about the words of the pink-haired girl, I did not noticeably miss most of the stories of other children about myself. The last thing I heard was the blonde man's story about himself. My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. I'm 6 years old. I love family and training. I don't like lies. The goal is to become a Hokage like my father. The son of the 4th Hokage was the last to tell about himself. After his words, he carefully looked at me with his sky-blue eyes, as if studying me. Does he really know? The thought flashed through my head. I don't know why, but I didn't really want to figure out family problems right now, even if they are my real family. Well, that's great. Since we've all met, let's start our lesson. Who will tell me what a chakra is? Sensei began to speak, but I was lost in my thoughts and didn't listen to him at all. And why would I do that? I already know all this very well. After about an hour, our first lesson and part-time first day at the academy ended. We were talking about something fun with Sasuke and headed outside. Coming to the street, the very first of our entire class, we noticed that our families were discussing something violently together. Oh. Naruto, Sasuke, you're back. Mikoto-san said, noticing us, thereby distracting everyone from the conversation. Yeah. We answered in chorus and started telling everyone about the boring lesson at the academy. After talking to each other, we went our separate ways. But before we left the clearing, I noticed that someone was looking at us, and especially at me. Turning my head, I noticed that 2 blonde men with blue eyes and a woman with red hair and violet blue eyes were looking at me. Deciding not to think about it, I, as if nothing had happened, began to cheerfully discuss the first day at the academy. The weather was dry and hot outside. The sun mercilessly scorched the streets of Konoha, which made all the villagers languish from the heat. But despite the weather conditions, no one cancelled work and study at the Shinobi Academy. Naruto, how hot, I said, heading towards the academy. Because of such hot weather, I had to change my clothes a little. I wore my usual white light t-shirt, short blue shorts and shinobi sandals, but I wanted to go in my favorite kimono. Well, Conan tied my hair in 2 high tails in the morning so that they wouldn't get in the way. That's for sure. Maybe, well, her this academy? Let's go home and get some more sleep. Commented a small copy of the fox, sitting on my shoulder. You know, I don't mind, but I don't want to listen to comments on this from others tonight. I replied to Kurama, still not going to the academy though. Well, there are advantages, for example, today you have your first lesson in throwing shurikens. Kurama said, trying to cheer me up. You're right, at least something has its advantages. Moreover, I am very interested in watching others how they miss. I grinned, imagining a picture in front of me where almost all the students missed, and I hit the bullseye the first time. I especially like to watch their reaction, I added when I felt that the fox had gone back to me in print and accelerated my steps so as not to catch a sunstroke. We ate. As soon as I reached the academy building, I was about to go inside, when I suddenly heard girlish screams. Sasuke-kun! A girl's cry was heard behind me. Turning my head to the sounds annoying me, I saw a crowd of girls running after Sasuke, who, apparently, was running away from them. Ha, 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 that's hilarious. Uchiha Sasuke is running away from a crowd of girls. I laughed at the picture I saw. Ha, 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 serves him right. Kurama picked up my infectious laugh, being in the subconscious. But before I could say anything, someone suddenly grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into the courtyard of the academy. When I came to the backyard, I caught my breath a little and looked at my abductor. Sasuke, what are you doing? I asked the brunette. And what is not visible? I'm running away from a crowd of hungry wolves. Sasuke answered my question, smiling a little from the corners of his lips. Ha. More like rabid chickens, I noticed. Well, yes, you're right here. In any case, why drag me into this? I asked Uchiha Jr. and waited for his answer. And you shouldn't have laughed at me. I could have helped. Sasuke answered a little offended. With what? Tell them that you're mine and that they don't touch you? I suggested jokingly. From what he heard, Sasuke blushed a little and barely audibly replied, yes. Now I was already standing in surprise at the brunette's answer. Was he joking just now, or was he serious? The same question was spinning in my head. After standing there for 2 more minutes, thinking about what Sasuke said, I was the first to break the silence. We have a lesson now, so let's go, otherwise we'll be late. I said and headed towards the main entrance. Of course he was joking. Naruto, did you seriously think that someone like him could fall in love with someone like me? Moreover, we are only 6 years old, what kind of love? I asked myself rhetorically. As soon as we arrived at the office, sitting down in our seats, our teacher, Yumino Irika, entered. Hello children, sit down in your seats and let's start the lesson. Sensei said, walking up to the teacher's desk. After that, he began to tell a lecture about countries. He mostly talked about the land of fire, but he also did not forget to tell about others. From such a boring lecture, I didn't notice how I fell asleep. Akatsuki Naruto. The teacher shouted at me when he saw that I had fallen asleep. At the mention of a familiar surname, I woke up abruptly and immediately faced the angry gaze of our sensei. Naruto, I see you know this material well. If so, why don't you tell me about the wind country yourself? Well, please, we're all listening to you carefully. Iruko said angrily. His words made me very angry, but without giving any sign, I calmly replied, the wind country is one of the most famous countries. It is located southwest of the land of fire and borders the country of rivers and the village of hidden rain. Despite the fact that the country covers a vast territory, it largely consists of deserts, therefore, it produces little. Also, since very little precipitation falls during the year, the inhabitants of the country live in villages built next to oases. I briefly told about the country of the wind. This made the teacher's eyes pop out, because I not only told briefly about the country of the wind, but also highlighted the main questions about the country. Good, well done. Let's continue the lesson then, Sensei said, and again began to tell us about the countries, sometimes looking in my direction. Ha, 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 did you see his face? My red-haired friend was laughing in my subconscious. From such an infectious laugh, I barely restrained myself from laughing out loud. Are you okay? Sasuke asked me in a worried whisper. Yes, it's just that Iruko-sensei's face was too funny and I had to restrain myself from laughing. I honestly admitted, answering in a whisper. And finally the lesson ended. As soon as the bell rang for recess, a large crowd of children of our age formed around our desk with Sasuke. There were both girls and boys in this crowd. And if the girls left immediately, as soon as Sasuke politely asked to leave, then the boys did not even think about leaving. Hi, your name is Naruto, right? Very nice, and I'm Kiba. Let's be friends. The boy with the red stripes on his cheeks said with a smile. To which I just nodded in response. And I'm Choji. Will you? A fat boy introduced himself, offering me chips. No, thanks, I'm not hungry. I politely declined the treat. I'm Shikamaru Nara, nice to meet Akatsuki Naruto. The boy with the pineapple hairstyle introduced himself yawning. And it's very nice to meet you. Just call me Naru, I said with a smile. After a few more introductions of names, I was abruptly questioned. Are you so beautiful like your mother or father? A boy from the crowd asked a question. I don't know exactly, but more like my father, I answered a little belatedly. Are you local? Not really, we moved to Konoha only 2 years ago. I answered the question honestly. Are you free after the academy? Kiba asked me. I'm sorry, Kiba, but no. I have to go somewhere after the academy. I said a little guiltily. Do you have a boyfriend? Choji asked me, eating one packet of chips after another. From such a question, I was a little embarrassed. No. Do you have any brothers or sisters? Nara asked me. I was surprised by such a question. And what should I say? I thought, not knowing what to answer. I was sitting and thinking how to get out of this question, when suddenly Sasuke saved my situation. Stop walking around our desk here. Tired of it. All you can do is ask stupid questions. The brunette got angry, hitting his hand on the desk, thereby attracting attention to himself. After such a statement, Uchiha Jr. grabbed my wrist and dragged me away from the office. I saw such an evil Sasuke for the first time in 2 years. Before, he was always calm and reasonable, but now he got angry for no reason at all. Of course, he was sometimes strange, but not to this extent. What the fuck are you doing? I asked him a question, stopping on the street, next to the academy building and pulling my hand out of captivity. I'm sorry, I'm just tired of everyone looking at you. First, this Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the son of the 4th Hokage, looked at you the whole lesson, and now these mongrels have started asking you these stupid questions. Sasuke said resentfully. What? Naruto was looking at me the whole lesson? Damn, either he guesses that I am his sister or he already knows about it. I can't understand. I thought to myself. Naru. Naru. The brunette called me, forcing me to distract myself from my thoughts. Eh? What's wrong with you? Uchiha Jr. asked me. Nothing, I was just thinking a little. Okay, let's go to class already, otherwise we'll be late. And I don't want to be late, because the next lesson will be on throwing shurikens. I commented and was about to leave when I was stopped by the voice of a brunette. Stop. Sasuke stopped me. What? I asked, waiting for an answer. Well, I wanted to invite you and your family to the river, Uchiha Jr. said a little stammering. To the river? I asked in surprise, not expecting such an invitation. Yes, it's so hot, so tomorrow we will go to the river with the whole family, and we decided to invite you too. Sasuke explained. Well, yes, the weather is really very hot. Well, then tomorrow I'll tell you the answer. Okay, I'll be waiting. The brunette replied, and together we went to the office from which we ran away 5 minutes ago. Oh. And here's Naruto and Sasuke come. Kiba commented on our appearance as soon as we entered the classroom. Since everyone is here, let's head to the training ground. Iruko-sensei said when he saw the two of us. 5 minutes later, we were already at one of the training grounds of the academy. Okay, listen carefully. Now I will take turns, calling your surnames, and giving 5 shurikens each. Your task is to hit the target. Do you understand everything? The teacher explained to us. Seeing how everyone was nodding in a sign that they understood, Sensei began to call to him one by one, giving everyone 5 pieces of shurikens and writing down the best result on a piece of paper. Namikaze Naruto uzumaki. The teacher's voice was heard. Coming out of the crowd, the blonde took a shuriken and began to throw one at a time, hitting the target each time. 5 out of 5. Iruko said, writing down the result on a piece of paper. Uchiha Sasuke. Said our sensei. As soon as Sasuke came out of the crowd, all the girls started shouting, Sasuke-kun. As seen by supporting him. Uchiha took the shurikens and started throwing them at the target. 5 out of 5. The teacher announced the result and immediately wrote it down. Well done, Sasuke. I congratulated him as soon as he came up to me. Yeah. He answered me, nodding and blushing a little. Akatsuki Naruto. Iruko finally announced me. Good luck. The brunette wished me, before I left the crowd. When they finally came out of the crowd, everyone stared at me as if they wanted to burn a hole in me. But without paying due attention to it, I approached our teacher. Taking all the shurikens in my hand, I threw them with one movement of my hand. A few seconds, and all 5 pieces are already exactly in the middle of the target. Turning my head to Iruko-sensei and the others, I saw surprise, envy, and admiration on their faces. 5 out of 5. Having come to his senses, the teacher announced my result and began to write it down. Well done. Sasuke congratulated me with a smile on his face as soon as I approached him. Thank you. I answered him with the same smile. All the other lessons were pretty boring. But that's nothing, almost at every break, girls climbed up to Sasuke and me. And if they came to Sasuke with good intentions, then they certainly came to me with bad ones. They just kept shouting at me that I was taking them away from Sasuke. But most of all from this crowd of girls stood out 2 beasts, Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanako. Damn, I don't even have anyone to go home with now. I commented, heading towards the store, after a difficult day at the Shinobi Academy. A few moments later, a small cloud of smoke appeared, from which a little fox cub got out. What about Sasuke? Kurama asked, sitting on my shoulder. He is currently running away from another crowd of rabid chickens. I said with a grin. Well, he deserved it. The fox replied with a victorious grin. After buying all the necessary products in the store, Kurama and I went towards the house. Naru. A familiar voice came from behind me. Looking away from where the sounds were heard, I saw Obito. Toby? What are you doing here? Wasn't your mission supposed to end only in the evening? I asked him. Yes, but today we completed the mission much faster than usual, so we came earlier. Obito explained. Okay, then will you help me with the bags? I asked, of course. He answered, taking all the packages from my hands. We got home pretty quickly, considering today's weather. When I entered our house, the first thing I did was go to the kitchen to lay out the groceries, and Toby followed me. I see you've already returned. Sasori said, seeing us on the threshold into the living room, thereby distracting himself from some documents that he was reading. Yes, Toby helped me bring all the groceries home so that I arrived faster than usual. I noticed, going into the kitchen. Where to? Obito asked, also coming into the kitchen and pointing at the bags in his hands. You can put it on the table for now, I'll sort everything out now anyway. I commented. On my instructions, Obito put all the bags on the table and went into the living room, to Sasori. I quickly sorted out all the products in their places and began to prepare lunch and dinner in advance. By the way, since you were already here, then where is everyone else? I asked Sasori and Obita, taking a frying pan out of the closet. Pain and Kisame are on a mission now, they got a very important S-rank mission today, so I think they will come somewhere for dinner. Kakuzu and Zetsu are on duty today, they have to guard the village until tonight. Konan and Deidara remain to help the fourth Hokage. And Haiden can be said to be busy too. I told Sasori about the others. And about Haiden, can you elaborate? I asked, leaving the frying pan on the stove so that it warmed up and going into the living room. I began to glare at Sasori so that he would tell me information about this fool. Well, that, mumbled Sasori, without giving an exact answer. Walking. Obito answered for him, calmly sipping a mug of hot tea. Just one word and I already knew exactly where Haiden was now. I see, so he's in the bar now, I said my guess. Hit exactly on target. Toby replied jokingly, saying that I answered correctly. You could have taken me with you, Ku commented resentfully, still sitting on my stiff-shouldered. And you better keep quiet, otherwise you'll be left without food. And also, get off my shoulder at last, it's already numb for the time you've been sitting on it. I said to the fox a little irritably. Verdina, Kurama said finally, after which he finally jumped off my shoulder onto a soft sofa, sitting next to Sasori and Obita. And when will he come? I asked, waiting for an answer. Well, he said that he would come closer to lunch, Sasori replied. Okay, the main thing is that Konan doesn't find out about it, I commented and was about to go to the kitchen to cook food, when suddenly an angry voice was heard from the threshold into the living room. So I don't find out about what? Conan's angry voice was heard. It's you, Conan, and we were just talking about you. Toby said when he saw Conan. And what did you talk about so that I wouldn't find out? She asked again, waiting for an answer from us. Now Conan looked very annoyed and angry, as fatigue from sorting through another stack of documents can be seen. There was a feeling that if we didn't tell her what was wrong right away, she would make origami out of us. Hey Conan, calm down. It's actually Naruto here, said Deidara, being behind Conan. And you shut up. Not only did the Hokage blow up almost the entire office, he also managed to blow up important documents. Conan began either to complain or to be indignant at Deidara. I'm not to blame here, the blonde man began to justify himself. And who then? She asked, after which there was complete silence in the room. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm too tired, so this hot weather, apologized Conan, sitting down on the sofa. By the way, since you were already here, where is Haiden? Deidara asked, also sitting down on the sofa. It was after these words that I realized that it was better for me to leave here as soon as possible. Therefore, without hesitation, I went to the kitchen to continue cooking. About 5 minutes after I left, I heard Conan saying he was going to kill Haiden and stuff like that. Well, 10 minutes later, Haiden himself appeared. After that, the catch-up between Haiden and Conan began all over the house. Haiden was running away from the evil Conan, who was running after him with a frying pan in her hands, trying to hit him. Having finished with all the preparations, I called everyone to the table. By this time, both had calmed down. Conan, as always, calmly ate her portion, as if nothing had happened, and Haiden, who was sitting with a big bump on his head, tried to eat a little faster, while looking at Conan all the time. After everyone had eaten, Conan and I cleared everything off the table, washed the dishes, and began to do our own business. Deidara and Conan started sorting through some papers, Toby and Kurama were talking about something, Hayden went to some store, and I went to my room to study a new technique that Pain got me on one of his missions. When I came to my room, the first thing I took out of the closet was a scroll with equipment and began to study it in detail. The chakra chain technique requires a lot of chakra, which is why it can only be used by people with a high level of endurance. The technique itself transforms the chakra into yellow chains that can be used to contain or create a barrier. I read the Uzumaki clan technique scroll out loud. That's it? It doesn't even say exactly how to use this technique. What else did I expect from just a copy of the scroll? I commented on my reasoning after reading the scroll with the technique. Okay, we should at least try to learn this technique anyway, I said and jumped out of the window into the backyard and began trying to repeat the technique. Folding my hands into several seals, I shouted, "Chakra chains!" After that, ropes covered with chakra began to form next to me. It doesn't look like chains, I said, looking at the masterpiece I had created. Okay, let's do it again. This time it will definitely work out. I supported myself, after which I began to fold my hands and print again. During such a hard workout, I didn't even notice how evening had come in the yard. Naruto, are you alright? What are you doing here? Kakuzu ran up to me when he saw me lying on the grass, powerless. Kakuzu? What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be on duty with Zetsu today? We have already finished duty, so we came home. Kakuzu explained. Remembering what Sasori said about Kakuzu and Zetsu coming only in the evening, I came to my senses and asked, Kakuzu, what time is it now? Well, somewhere around 7 o'clock in the evening. He answered me. I was slightly shocked by his answer. I trained for about 4 hours. Yes, I even train with Sasuke for only 2 hours, and here it's 4. Yes, I think I got too carried away. I voiced my thoughts out loud. Kakuzu, can you please take me to my room, otherwise I can't even move my arm after such a workout. I asked Kakuza. At my request, he gently picked me up and carried me towards the house. What happened? Conan asked anxiously on the threshold of the house, seeing me in such a state. Training. That's all I answered. A few seconds later I was lying on my bed in my room. Everyone present at the moment was in this room right now. They kept asking me how I was feeling and so on. But thanks to Conan, who threw everyone out the door, saying that I needed a rest, I now don't get asked unnecessary questions. Of course, I understand that everyone is worried about me, but not to the same extent. Well, an hour later my body completely recovered, so without wasting any more time, I ran into the living room, expecting to see everyone there. When I got to the living room, I saw all the members of my family sitting on the couch and having a nice conversation about something. Naruto, have you fully recovered yet? Does anything hurt anywhere? Sasori asked me when he saw me on the threshold of the living room. No, I'm much better already. I answered with a smile, sitting down next to the others on the soft sofa. Naruto, didn't you train the technique I gave you recently? Pain, who was also sitting on the couch, asked me. Yes. Well, how's the progress? Pain asked me again. Well, at first I didn't succeed, but after several attempts I succeeded and now I can summon as many as 4 chains. I boasted of my successes. Well done. We should celebrate this. Toby praised me, sitting on another sofa, which stood opposite the sofa on which I am sitting. Come on, then we'll celebrate tomorrow. We all have a day off tomorrow, so I think we can even go somewhere. Kisame commented. And what? Not a bad idea. Then where will we go tomorrow? Zetsu asked. Let's go to the forest. We gather berries. Toby suggested his idea. Yeah, and bugs, too. Deidara commented, clearly not wanting to go there. By the way, Sasuke's family invited us to go to the river with them tomorrow. I said, to the river? I don't mind going there, it's just such hot weather. Kisame said, clearly thinking about something. Of course you can go to the river, but where can we get swimsuits? Conan asked. And why do we need these swimsuits? And so it will do. Haydn said, after which he got hit on the head by Conan. Well, we can buy swimsuits tomorrow, said Pain. Well, that's decided, tomorrow we go to the river, said Deidara, who liked this idea. After a small conversation, we all went to our rooms, wishing each other good night. Morning. The sun begins to spread its rays and give warmth, driving away the light morning cold. But despite the sun's rays, which persistently shone into Naruko's room through an open window, the blonde herself was sleeping very soundly, not paying attention to anything. She would have slept on and on if Obito hadn't suddenly burst into her room. Naru, get up. Get up. Look at the beautiful weather, the birds are singing, the sun is shining, what else do you need for good weather? One of Naruko's family members said cheerfully, trying to wake her up. Obito's cheerful and at the same time loud voice quickly woke up the blonde. Yeah, that's if you don't take into account that today will be the same heat as yesterday. The younger Akatsuki answered sleepily, still lying in bed, or rather under a thin and not at all warm blanket. In any case, you should get up as it's your turn to cook breakfast today. Obito said, reminding everyone that it was Naruko's turn to cook breakfast today, after which he left her room, humming a song to himself. Naruko, as soon as Tobi left my room, I poked my head out from under the covers and looked at the clock. 6 o'clock in the morning. There are still 2 hours left before the academy, so why did they wake me up so early? I was indignant to myself, reluctantly getting out of bed. Finally getting out of bed, not forgetting to make it, the first thing I decided to do was go to the bathroom. I took all the accessories I needed, a bathrobe, and went to the room I needed. When I got to the bath, I quickly took all the water treatments and threw on an orange robe and went back to my room. When I came into the room, the first thing I did was go to the closet with things to choose a light and at the same time comfortable suit. After a little rummaging in the closet, I opted for an orange t-shirt with red clouds, white shorts reaching to the knees and, of course, blue shinobi sandals. After putting on the clothes I chose, I braided myself 2 high tails, then looked at the wall clock. 30 minutes have passed since I woke up, and I haven't even gone down to the kitchen yet. Damn, I need to go cook breakfast urgently. It was with such thoughts in my head that I flew out of the room like a bullet. After descending from the 3rd floor, I ran into the kitchen and began to get kitchen utensils out of cupboards and dressers at a fast pace in order to at least cook something. Oh. I see you've already woken up, Conan said with a smile on her face, entering the kitchen. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she immediately went to the refrigerator, with the obvious intention of getting something out of it. As expected, she took sausage, eggs, milk, and bread out of the refrigerator. And putting them next to me, she began to help me prepare breakfast for everyone. More precisely, I was woken up. I corrected Conan with displeasure, remembering the morning scene. Well, what about it? I was actually unwillingly woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I wanted to get some more sleep. To my displeased remark, Conan only laughed a little, as if imagining to herself how cheerfully I was woken up. After a few more jokes from Conan on the topic of my cheerful morning, we began to cook an omelette with sausage and toast, talking about today along the way. After about 30 minutes, everything was ready, but that wasn't enough for Conan, so she also decided to make some salads and sandwiches. Good morning, everyone, Deidara said, coming into the living room just as we started setting the table. As soon as I turned my head to a familiar voice to also say, good morning, I saw something in front of me that I didn't understand. The blonde's hair was not, as always, perfectly combed and styled, but stood on end, and with everything tangled. There were bags under his eyes that spoke of lack of sleep. And he himself was dressed in the clothes he wore yesterday, namely, A blue sleeveless t-shirt that was in a cage and blue shorts that reached to his knees. My God, what happened to you? Conan voiced my thoughts as she returned from the kitchen with a plate of sandwiches. In short, I spent the whole night sorting out those papers that we didn't have time to sort out last time, said Deidara, sitting down on a soft sofa. And how? Have you done everything? Conan asked, putting a plate of sandwiches on the table. Yeah, just recently finished. The blonde man, tired of all these papers, replied. After that, Deidara began to tell Conan in detail about some important papers, and in the meantime I began to lay out salads that Conan had made on the table. Having finished laying out the salads, my eyes began to look for Deidara and Conan, who were not in the living room. And how did I not notice it right away? Good morning, Naru, said Zetsu, coming into the living room and sitting down at the table, thereby distracting me from my thoughts. Good morning, I echoed him, looking at how Zetsu sits down at the table, and then puts a salad with tomatoes on his plate. By the way, we're going to the river with the Sasuke family today. I'll have to ask Conan to make some sandwiches for the road, I thought, remembering the family vacation. After thinking a little about the upcoming vacation, I finally sat down at the table and began to have breakfast. After a while, other members of the Akatsuki family appeared on the threshold of the living room, and took turns sitting down at the table. We ate, as always, in a cheerful atmosphere. Of course, I talked the most, telling about the academy and the new friends I met at the Shinobi Academy, and about our boring lessons. We also talked about today, about how we would go to the river, where we would buy swimsuits, and so on. Hey, Naruto, why didn't you tell me you were already eating? The fox finally asked me in my subconscious, after which there was a pop next to the table and white smoke appeared. When the cloud of smoke disappeared, a one-tailed fox came out from there. He walked on his paws to the sofa on the edge of which I was sitting and with one jump sat on my lap. Hey, actually, you have a separate chair. I started to object to the fact that he was sitting on my feet. He's not comfortable, muttered Kurama. And what? That doesn't mean you can eat on my lap. I objected to his excuse. After several more attempts to lift this red ball of fur from my knees, I gave up. After finishing the meal, we all cleared the table together, wiped the table and washed the dishes. Finally finished with the cleaning after breakfast, I looked at the wall clock. 7:30. In 30 minutes, classes will start at the academy, so I'd better get ready, I thought, looking at my watch. And she walked briskly to her room. Entering the room, I went to the chest of drawers, in which I usually have all the scrolls, shurikens, kunai, etc. Taking out a few kunai, shurikens and a scroll with the chakra chain technique from there, I put it all in my bag, which I hung on my belt. I'm ready, I voiced my thoughts and headed towards the front door, not forgetting to grab a red fox by the scruff of the neck along the way, who said something about me being a bad Jinchurikid. I'm gone. Finally I shouted so that everyone could hear and went towards the academy. Releasing the skin of his friend, he jumped on my shoulder with a quick movement. Damn, it's so hot, I said, languishing from the heat. And I told you that it would be better if we stayed at home. Kurama began to prove his case again. What a pest he is, I thought, listening to his nagging. I can hear everything, Ku said, reminding me that he could hear my thoughts. When I reached the large building of the academy, in order not to get completely fried, I entered the building with a quick step. When I entered the building, I noticed a lightness on my shoulder, which indicated that my furry friend had gone back to me in print. Ignoring the other children who were looking at me for some reason, I went in the direction of our class. Something I don't like the way they look at me, I thought, once again noticing how they throw glances at me. When I reached the door of our classroom, I opened the door under the eyes of other children and went inside. But I didn't have time to go inside the classroom, when suddenly I immediately bumped into someone. Because of the sudden collision, I fell to the floor with this person. We were lying on the floor with him, and in exactly this position. He was lying on the bottom, and I was on top. He even hugged me around the waist in a sense. Noticing what position I was in, I looked at the one who was currently lying under me. Raising my head, I saw Naruto. Lifting my head, I met blue eyes like two clear lakes. It was Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the son of the fourth Hokage and my brother. Damn, and why have I been so unlucky lately? At the moment he was lying on the floor, under me, and I was on him. And we looked at each other as if we had met for the first time. It was as if he was carefully watching my reaction and waiting for something. I knew it, so it's you, he whispered so that only I could hear it. Hearing his words, I quickly got up from him and started brushing off my clothes, as if nothing had happened. Shaking off all the dust from my clothes, I looked at the class. Almost all the girls looked at me as if they wanted to burn a hole in me. Wow. I didn't expect Naruto to be so popular. And at first glance, you can't tell. Although, what else did I expect from the son of Yellow Lightning, Konoha? And the boys, in turn, looked angrily and jealously at the blonde, but for some reason Sasuke looked at him most of all, rather even with a murderous look. But not paying attention to all the quail in the classroom, I went to my place under the eyes of other children, not forgetting from time to peek at my still lying brother. Sitting down in a place behind my back, everyone began to whisper. You saw how this Akatsuki fell on Naruto? I heard a girly voice behind me. Turning my head a little in the direction of the sound, I began to imperceptibly spy on the blonde, who was just saying those words. Yes, she fell on him on purpose. The pink-haired girl who was standing next to her picked up the topic of conversation. As I remember, her name seems to be Sakura. After a few more comments about my fall on Naruto, the girls who were discussing me looked angrily in my direction. Well, now I certainly won't make friends with any of them. Sakura, apparently, wanted to come up to me and say everything she thinks about me, but Teacher Iruko came to my aid, who entered the office. I ask everyone to take their seats, we are starting the lesson. Sensei said, approaching the table. The girls had no choice but to glare at me. I was about to say a few words to them at the farewell, when I noticed that someone was sitting on my right side. Damn, for some reason I've become somewhat inattentive lately. Turning my head, I saw such a familiar blonde crown. What are you doing here? I asked him, not understanding why he was sitting here. He's supposed to be sitting at the last desk, so why is he here? Why can't I sit next to my sister? Naruto answered the question with a malicious smile on his face, looking into my eyes, so he did catch up after all. Well, now even more problems will be added. And why am I so drawn to trouble? I thought. When everyone finally sat down in their seats, we started the lesson. Iruko-sensei started telling us about who Kage is, etc. But I, as always, did not listen. Well, why, if I already know it? After all, it's not for nothing that Kisame and Deidara taught me this. Yeah, I remember once I made a little mistake calling Genjutsu Hozuki the second Raikage, so I then ran for 5 minutes from Deidara and Konan so as not to get a slap on the head. Hehe, Naruko. Sasuke tried to whisper to me. Huh? What? I finally came to myself. Something I got too carried away with memories. I've been trying to reach you for 2 minutes now, Sasuke explained, speaking in a whisper. I'm sorry, I was thinking a little, so what were you talking about? I also asked in a whisper, realizing that if we talk louder, our teacher will definitely notice it, and considering that we are sitting on the first desk, I asked you about the river. The brunette replied, waiting for an answer from me. Oh, yes. We're coming. I said with a smile, in my heart rejoicing at this rest from the heat. But as soon as I noticed that Sensei was looking at me, my smile immediately peeled off. I see you have fun there, right Naruko? Iruko-sensei said with a sinister smile. Then why don't you answer a few easy questions like yesterday? The teacher said, hinting at me to get up. Well, as expected, I got up from my desk and began to listen to the questions that our sensei would ask. And yet it's strange that he finds fault with me the most. Who is Kage? The teacher asked the first question. Kage is the title assigned to the leader of the hidden village of one of the 5 great shinobi countries. Each Kage oversees the work of his village, from sending ninjas on missions to making difficult decisions regarding the safety of his people. Also, the village's Kage is usually recognized as its strongest ninja. I answered without thinking for a second. Okay, then, name any Kage and tell us about him. Iruko said and began to wait for an answer from me. So, remember Naruto, about whom you know the most? Oh. Precisely. Pain once told me about the Kage of the village of Hidden Rain. Hanzo, also known as Hanzo the Salamander, is a legendary shinobi, as well as the leader of the Hidden Rain village. Once upon a time there lived a poisonous salamander in his village. When she died, Hanzo, while still a child, transplanted her venom gland to himself, wanting to gain more strength and teach his body to produce poison. After that, the villagers began to be afraid of Hanzo, since almost everyone who communicated with him died of poison or was poisoned. During the Second World War, Ninja Hanzo fought against the legendary Sannin and won. But due to the fact that he was impressed by the strength of his rivals, he left them alive. I told about the Kage of the village of Hidden Rain, looking at the teacher's surprised face. Apparently, he did not expect that I would tell about the Second World War ninja. Then, the last question, who are the Sannins and what started the Second World War ninja? After some time, the teacher stammered. It was clear from his voice that he was excited about something. Hey! This is actually not the topic of the lesson anymore. Okay, Sanini, but the war, yes, I know almost nothing about it. Damn, well, I asked Conan to tell me about the war, but no, she refused, justifying herself by saying that it was too early for me to know. Yes, I can already beat shinobi in peace. And here they object to me just to tell about the war. I objected in my thoughts. Sanini are famous ninjas from the Hidden Leaf, named the 3 strongest shinobi of their time. I answered the question, after which silence hung in the office. The other students, as you can see, were closely watching the interrogation of Iruko-sensei. The teacher was studying me with his eyes, while being in his thoughts, and I didn't know how to answer the very last question about World War II. I was about to tell sensei that I didn't know this topic, when I suddenly remembered about my red-haired friend, who was probably fast asleep in my subconscious right now. Kurama! Wake up! I urgently need your help. I tried to call Kuram in my subconscious. What happened to Naru? The fox asked after a while, yawning at the same time. Help! What started the Second World War? I asked him a question, hoping that Ku would help me after all. He's my last chance. Okay, I'll help. Then give me control over your body. The 9-tailed fox demon said, agreeing to help me. Why? How why? Reply. Anyway, are you giving me control of your body or not? My red-haired friend repeated his question once again. I had no choice but to agree and completely give control to Kurama. After all, I trust him in any case. Agreeing, at the same second, warmth passed through my body. Most likely it was the Ku chakra, which he dispersed throughout my body. Well, after that I found myself in my subconscious. Again, this cold water is everywhere. There are many different passages and a large open cage that opened when Ku and I were able to get rid of the seal. Nothing has changed since my last visit here, only, a large screen was visible in front of the open cage. As you can see, Kurama somehow managed to connect to my vision, but how? And why didn't I know that before? Looking at the same screen, I saw Teacher Iruko in front of me, who looked as if right into my eyes. Well, what started the war? Sensei asked. 20 years after the First World War and imprisonment after the peace treaty, the countries began to suffer from palpable economic inequality. Countries began to form alliances and, under the pretext of justice, began to invade the territories of other sovereign states in order to expand their territories by using military force. This led to the outbreak of World War II. Ninja, said a rough and ominous voice. Wow. I didn't know that Ku understood this. Hee, now I know who to ask for help. From such a voice, our teacher involuntarily shuddered. And Naruto, what's wrong with you? He asked about my somachestvium. Kurama. That's enough, then I'll do it myself. I replied, just in case the fox didn't do anything stupid there. As you wish. Now I'll give you back control, so get ready. And yes, please don't bother me for a while, I need to sleep. My red-haired friend warned me, after which I lost consciousness again. Opening my eyes, I still saw our sensei in front of me. For some reason, he looked at me as if he was waiting for something. Oh, right. I need to give an answer. Yes, I am fine, Iruko-sensei, let's continue the lesson. I said with a smile on my face so that they wouldn't notice anything. Seeing a positive nod from the teacher, I sat down at my seat and we continued the lesson. Naruto, after Iruko-sensei looked at me strangely somehow, I thought he noticed. Although, considering what kind of voice I had, I think Iruko-sensei will definitely start following me. And perhaps because Kurama helped me, my chakra could somehow react to his chakra. And if Iruko noticed it, it would be very problematic. We have to be careful with him. And then I have a feeling that he's not just asking me. It's like he's checking something or looking for some information about me. But why? I'll have to follow him somehow, then maybe I'll find out something. Naru, come outside with us. Let's eat and just get some fresh air. Kiba invited me to join them in the company, just when the lesson ended and our teacher disappeared without a trace from his workplace. Well, I don't even know, I said with a silly smile on my face. I didn't really want to eat right now, and if I went with them, they would certainly start flooding me with questions, as on the first day. Therefore, I wanted to refuse him guiltily with my trademark smile, justifying it by saying that I have things to do. But my unfinished speech was immediately interrupted by a blonde man who had been calmly listening to our conversation. I'm sorry, Kiba, but Naruto and I need to talk urgently. She said how Naruto cut off, then dragged me somewhere away. Well, what kind of day is this today? The thought flashed through my head while we were walking briskly towards the left side of the academy, where it is impossible except for teachers. Well, what does that mean? I asked Namikaze Jr. when we both stopped. In fact, I didn't resist just because I wanted to talk to him too. And so I would have blown it up a long time ago, as Deidara likes to do. But suddenly, instead of saying anything, he abruptly turned to me with his whole body, securing me in his arms. I found you. I heard him say, holding me in his arms. Not only his voice was trembling, but his whole body was saying that he was very much afraid of something. After all, he was smiling just this morning, so why did his mood change so abruptly, all this time? I've been training day and night to find you one day, and finally found you, he said with a tremor in his voice, hugging me even more tightly to him. Did he really try so hard to find me? He didn't even see me in his eyes, so why such diligence, why? I voiced my question out loud. I don't know myself, but, as soon as I found out about you, for the first time I saw the sad faces of Kachan and Tasan, I wanted to get you back at any cost. He explained. After that, silence fell between us. Of course I wanted to meet my real family, but I didn't think it would be so fast. Okay, think hard. What would others do in my place? Blown up, ran away, killed, stabbed? Aha! It's all wrong. Well, then we will act according to the situation. I thought decisively, going through a lot of different options in my head. You know, I've also wanted to see you since I was a child, but, at the same time, I don't. Akatsuki replaced my family, and I don't want to lose them, I honestly confessed, breaking out of his grip. So you don't want to come back to us? Naruto asked me directly, realizing what I was going to introduce. There was surprise and fear in his eyes now. I want to, but not now. I replied. But, how? He began to speak, as I interrupted him almost immediately. Please don't tell anyone about me. As I said, I love my current family. And I'm not ready to part with them yet. I explained, interrupting the blonde. After my words, my brother became noticeably sad, as it seems he did not expect such an answer from me at all. But I promise you, when I'm ready, I will definitely come to you. I said with a slight smile on my face. Promise? He asked, holding out his little finger to me. I promise, brother Naruto. I confirmed, responding to his pinky oath. The end of Naruto. At the same time in the office of the Hokage. Did you find out what I asked you to do? The fourth Hokage asked a question, sitting in his chair and looking seriously at Iruko, who was standing opposite him, holding some papers in his hands. Yes. He replied, after which he handed the papers into the hands of the blonde. Akatsuki Naruto is 6 years old. Female gender. 2 years ago, she arrived here with her family, consisting of 10 people, including herself. There is an assumption that they are not blood relatives. At the moment they live in a 3-story house of the Uzumaki clan. All members of her family are members of the Umbu S rank. Naruki-sensei told general information. What about her skills and knowledge? Namikaze Sr. asked. Her knowledge is at the highest level. She not only knows about the chakra, kage, villages and their location, but also knows information about the World War, which even a clan at her age should not know. As for her skills, she can easily hit the target with 10 shurikens with one movement of her hand. And I think that's not all she can do. Concluded Iruko, observing these few days for only one student on behalf of Minato. Is that all? The blonde asked the question, putting the documents with the personal information of Akatsuki Naruto aside. No, she also behaved strangely during the lesson. The teacher noticed, remembering how the blonde answered his questions. Did she behave strangely? Hokage asked. When I asked her about kage, she answered without hesitation, but when I asked her about the Ninja World War, she answered only after a while. And when she did answer, her voice was very rough, it felt like it wasn't her speaking. Iruko-sensei explained to Minato. After his words, silence fell in the office. It was obvious that Namikaze Sr. was silently digesting the information, drawing conclusions to himself, while Iruko was waiting for the blonde to say something. When she answered the question, did you notice anything strange in the flow of her chakra? The fourth Hokage asked a question, breaking the momentary silence. To be honest, I noticed some fluctuations in her chakra, Teacher Naruto answered thoughtfully. I see, if that's all, then you can go. Minato said. On his orders, Iruko left the office, leaving Hokage alone. Naruto, Namikaze barely said, looking at the photo of Akatsuki Jr. Naruto. The remaining lessons are shed imperceptibly quickly. Maybe it's because I overslept all the lessons, or because I knew all the material in advance. In any case, I didn't even have time to look back, as the last lesson had already passed. After hearing the bell announcing the end of the last lesson, all my classmates and the teacher quickly gathered all their belongings and ran out of the academy. And I was still sitting in my seat, thinking, what's wrong with you, Naru? Sasuke asked me, who stayed to wait for me after seeing the state I was in. Have you noticed anything strange in the behavior of our teacher? I asked him, still thinking about who our teacher was. Something I don't like is the way he is not noticeably watching me for others. No, but what should I have noticed? Uchiha Jr. immediately asked me a question, not understanding what this question was about. Nothing, okay, let's go, otherwise I still have to buy a swimsuit. I translated the topic of conversation and took my things, headed for the exit of the classroom. After going through all the long corridors of the academy, we were at the exit of the building in a few minutes. But then an unpredictable surprise was waiting for us in the form of one blonde man who was waiting for us, or rather me near the exit. Naruto. Why are you taking so long? I'm actually waiting for you. Naruto began to whine rather than to be indignant, as soon as he saw me, while coming closer and closer to us. And what is Namikaze Uzumaki doing here? Sasuke asked me rather than himself, looking at me with a demanding look so that I would tell him as soon as possible. Well, it so happened that I became friends with him today. I explained, smiling awkwardly. Well, I can't tell him that we are brother and sister. Oh. Hi. My name is Naruto, and you're Sasuke, right? It's very nice to meet you, said my brother, running up to us almost in a tight and extending his hand to Sasuke. The brunette looked at his hand with a contemptuous look for several seconds, as if he wanted to freeze it. But then he shook it anyway. Although all his discontent could be read on his face, Sasuke Uchiha. He only said coldly, shaking Namikaze Jr.'s hand, "Let's be friends, Sasuke-kun," said Naruto with a joyful smile, shaking hands in response. What? Since when did we become friends? The brunette began to be indignant. He was clearly shaken by the fact that the son of the fourth Hokage would be friends with him. Since then. The blonde man also answered him. Not wanting to listen to them, as it seems a long argument to the end, I left the academy on the street, where I was supposed to be met. Naru. A familiar voice called me. Turning my head in the direction from where I had just heard the voice, I saw Konan waving her arms and the rest of her family gathered, who were discussing something violently. Hi, honey, how did you spend today at school? Konan asked with a smile on her face as soon as I approached them. Okay. I replied with the same smile. Well, I can't tell her that Naruto now knows that I'm his sister. Yes, and even more so I began to suspect Naruto-sensei is something like he asks me in every lesson. It sounds really stupid, I'm happy for you. Konan was genuinely happy for me. But before I could say anything, I heard a man scream from the crowd. I said that a separate swimsuit would suit Naruto. Obito shouted at someone. And I said merged. Hayden shouted back. Are they little kids to argue about this? Come on, both of you shut up. Pain broke into their conversation, trying to calm them down. And you don't get involved, we have our own war here. They answered in unison, clearly not wanting their argument to end. If you look at it this way, then I'm for a separate swimsuit. He will show her whole well-coordinated figure, thinking, Deidara spoke his opinion. That's right, that everyone will look at her. You never know if there are any perverts there? So, what kind of a one piece am I? I inserted my 5 kopecks to Kisame. And so everyone spoke their opinion. And you didn't forget to ask me by chance? If you don't shut up right now, you'll all be left without food. Konan shouted at everyone already. To my surprise, everyone fell silent. Although, knowing Konan, it's not surprising. Oh. Sasuke-kun, we haven't seen each other for a long time, Konan said with her usual smile on her face. Turning back, I saw Sasuke and Naruto heading our way. Hello Konan-san. The brunette greeted her with a bow. Well, what are you Sasuke? You don't have to bow. You know I don't really like all these formalities. Konan said. Oh. And here, who do we have? Are you really Naruto's new friend? She asked, noticing my brother, next to Uchiha. Yes, hello. My name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Let's get acquainted. He introduced himself. After his words, the entire Akatsuki family that listened to this conversation looked at me in shock, waiting for an answer. There was surprise, panic, and incomprehension in their looks. Well, but one less problem. Only here, we still need to tell them about it. I'll tell you everything later, I replied to their looks. But even after my words, no one reacted in any way. I can see I'm still in shock. Okay, I think it's time for us. Sasori was the first to come out of shock. Why yes, Sasori is right. Then see you on the Sasuke-kun river, and I was glad to meet you in Naruto-kun. Conan said awkwardly. Goodbye. They said at the same time, when the whole crowd had already gone towards the main streets of Konoha, where almost all the shops were located. Well? Can you explain? Zetsu asked when we had gone far enough that no one could hear us. Well, it so happened that he found out that I was his sister. I explained, as if in one breath. What? Everyone exclaimed in surprise. So that there would be no misunderstanding, I told them everything that happened at school. And they, in turn, listened to me attentively, sometimes agreeing with me or vice versa. Well, that's how it is, I finished my story. By this time we were already approaching one of the shops with swimsuits. Okay, let's talk about it at home. And now to the store, otherwise we won't have time to buy anything. Kakuzu said, clearly not wanting to talk about it now. At his words, we all just nodded and calmly, as if this whole conversation had not happened, entered the store. Hello, do you need help deciding on a choice or do you need something specific? With a false smile on her face, the girl working in this store asked. We need swimsuits for everyone. Pain answered for everyone, in his usual manner. Why yes, of course. The girl said a little haltingly, after which she led us all to the far corner of the store. Here are the highest quality swimsuits that we have. When you decide on the choice, you can go to the checkout. The girl notified us, and then left. I don't like these. Deidara said, pointing to the black and red swimming shorts. And what kind of fright do they give you? They're mine. Haydn said, and they both started shouting at each other, proving something to each other. In my opinion, everyone who is now in the store and even next to him heard their screams. Both enough. Otherwise, we will be kicked out of the store now because of you. Abito stopped their argument. He started it first. They said at the same time, pointing at each other, they behave like little children. The thought flashed through my head, seeing how these two started arguing again. Honey, let's go pick out a swimsuit for you. While these two are being sorted out, we will just have time to choose a suitable swimsuit for you. Conan suggested, distracting me from my own thoughts. Why yes. I agreed with her and we went towards the children's section. When I reached the desired section, I saw in front of me just huge piles of children's swimsuits. There were not only one piece and separate swimsuits, there were even from other villages. Wow. How many of them? I commented out loud after seeing all this. There was even a feeling that there were more swimsuits in this section than in the others combined. Okay, then let's start measuring right away. Conan said, not wanting to delay a second. Before I knew it, I was already standing in the locker room with 5 swimsuits of different colors and types. Try on this green one first. Conan said, pointing to a green one-piece swimsuit with frills on the sides, which I held in my right hand. At her request, I tried on the green first. No, it doesn't suit you, let's go next. She said when I showed how I look in this swimsuit. The next swimsuit was a separate red color with ribbons. Horror. No. Definitely not. Conan said her opinion about the swimsuit. It was only 30 minutes later that all this hell finally ended. I will never go shopping with Conan again, I thought when we had already decided on the choice and were going to the checkout, and then we will go to look for the others. Oh. And here you are. And we already wanted to start looking for you, Deidara said as soon as Conan and I approached the cash register, where others were already standing. We can take care of ourselves if anything. Conan commented on Deidara's words. In general, I agree with Conan here. I can use the Thunder God technique or, in extreme cases, the Kurama chakra, and Conan can, if anything, use paper ninjutsu. With this, I think we can, if not kill, then cripple someone for sure. I didn't mean that. I meant that we just lost you and wanted to start looking so that nothing like this would happen to you. Deidara tried to justify himself. Okay, let's finally buy swimsuits and go to the river. Conan said, handing her swimsuit bag to the girl at the checkout. Naruto having paid for all our purchases, we left that store with grief in half. I had a feeling that they wouldn't let us in there anymore. It was necessary for Haydn and Deidara to make a scandal for the whole store about the price. Although I myself do not know exactly how much all our things were worth, but from the shocked faces of Pain and others, I can assume that the amount was very large. Well, but thanks to the threats of Deidara, who said that he would blow up this store to the ground, and Haydn's verbal sparring with the manager, we were given a discount, those bastards. To take so much money for some rags. Haydn grumbled with displeasure when we were already quite far away from the store. At the same moment, Conan, who had been standing next to me before, came up to him from behind and hit Haydn hard on the head. There are actually children here, she said, telling him not to express himself like that anymore, at least in front of me. What's the big deal? I've heard worse words from him, I thought, but almost immediately regretted it. What did you hear there? Kurama asked in a sepulchral voice. And then I realized what a mistake I had made. Damn, and I forgot that Kurama is now in my seal. Well, that's it. When we get home, I'll strangle him myself. The fox informed me in an angry voice. Well, that's it, Haydn is over. Having already passed another unknown store, we finally reached the intended meeting place. There was a feeling that the village ends here. There were no shops or other buildings here, on the contrary, everything was surrounded by only a forest. Naruto, are you sure that this is where we should meet with the Uchiha family? Pain asked me a question, apparently not understanding where we came from. Although you can't tell by his appearance, but by his voice I can tell for sure that he is worried about something. Why yes, probably, wonderful. We're lost. Commented to my surprise, not, as usual, Haydn, but Kisame, who was dissatisfied with this. What? Are we lost? How is it? And I wanted to swim so much. As a child, Obito complained. And I thought he had already got rid of this habit. What should I do? I've been choosing a swimsuit for Naru for so long. And what happens? Is it all for nothing? Conan reasoned excitedly. That's who's talking about what, and Conan about the swimsuit. Well, everyone shut up. Pain barked at everyone, menacingly incinerating everyone with his gaze. Oh. And here's the Akatsuki family. And we already thought that you wouldn't come. A familiar female voice was heard behind my back, forcing everyone to distract from the altercation with each other. Turning sharply, to face the source of the sound, I saw the entire main family of the Uchi clan assembled. Even the head of the clan, Fugaku-san, was with them. We saw each other very rarely, even though I was a regular guest at their house. And why didn't we notice them right away? I'll have to ask Conan later. Good reaction, commented Sasuke's older brother, Itachi-san. What is he talking about? A thought flashed through my head, not understanding what reaction he was talking about. Turning to face my family this time, I saw that each of them was standing in a fighting pose, with a weapon in his hands. Everyone except Deidara and Conan had weapons, and they also had some seals, as seen by the barrier. Don't worry, we're not going to attack you. The Uchiha clan are not such cowards to attack from behind a shadow. Fugaku-san said, smiling a little and extending his hand for a handshake. At this moment, without exception, everyone began to watch Pain, waiting for further actions. After a few seconds of complete silence, Pain finally put the katana back and slowly headed towards Uchiha. Pleased to meet you, Fugaku-san. Naruto has told me a lot about you. I am the head of the Akatsuki Nagato family. I hope for your support in the future. Pain formally introduced himself, shaking Sasuke's father's hand in return. Seeing that Pain was shaking hands with Uchiha in a friendly way, everyone, without exception, put their weapons away, as if all this had never happened. But, what did he just say? Nagato? Since when did he introduce himself by his real name? I don't understand anything. Well, if that's the case, let's go to the river, time is not asleep. Finally said Fugaku, after which he turned around in the other direction and went forward, telling us to follow him. Without contradicting him, we all followed him. Everyone was discussing something violently with someone. Pain and Fugaku-san, who were leading the way, were discussing the future relationships of the families and other clans. Mikoto-san was telling Konan new cooking recipes. Itachi-san and Haiden, Deidara and Sasori were talking about umbu and weapons. And Zetsu, Kakuzu, Kisame and Obito were arguing about something. I was the only one who, carried away by my thoughts, forgot about everything. Because of this, I even lagged a little behind others. Did something happen to Naruto? Sasuke asked me, who had appeared from nowhere. No, it's fine. I replied, smiling awkwardly. But by his eyebrows that narrowed into the bridge of his nose, I realized that he didn't believe me. And how do I answer then? Thinking about the next test? And what? It seems to be fine. But before I could say anything, I felt someone's warmth on my hand. Okay, tell me later. And now let's go. Otherwise, we're falling behind. Sasuke pulled me forward by the hand, grinning a little at my puzzled appearance. I don't know why, but I feel so comfortable around him. Maybe I really fell in love? Literally 10 or 15 minutes later, we were already in place. Everything around was so bright and beautiful, as if the sun specially illuminated this particular place. Every year, we come here to swim with the whole family. This can be said to be our tradition. No one else knows about this place except us, so I don't think anyone will come here. And I hope in the future, we will also maintain good relations. Yes, Naruto, Sasuke? Mikoto-san told all of us, after which I don't know why she turned to Sasuke and me. What is she talking about? Not understanding what Sasuke's mother was talking about, I looked at Sasuke with a questioning look. But instead of hearing the answer, I saw his red face, which even with tomatoes that he loves so much can be compared. Mom. Not satisfied with something, he shouted at Mikoto, Sanda. Well, what about it? You said yourself that you wanted it. With a kind smile on her face, she giggled, looking at me, then at Sasuke, who was as red as cancered. Honey, I don't think now is the time for this, said her husband, putting his arm around her waist. You're right. Anyway, let's go swimming. Mikoto joyfully declared to all those gathered. To be honest, I've never seen such a happy Mikoto-san. Honey, come on, I'll help you change into a swimsuit. Konan said, showing me the package that contained the swimsuit she had chosen for me. I'm coming. I replied, moving towards Konan. The end of Naruto. What do you think is Naruto's swimsuit? Haiden asked Zetsu, who wasn't going to change clothes at all. Unlike Zetsu, Haiden has already changed into his white swimming trunks. Of course, these are not the red ones that he wanted, but at least something. Now they were both sitting on a black blanket that Konan had kindly brought so as not to sit on the cold sand, most likely merged. Kisame responded instead, who had already changed into blue swimming trunks. But I think that Konan is still a sensible person and chose a separate swimsuit. Haiden commented, hoping after all that he was right. And then let's bet 5 Ri. said Kisame, confident that Conan would never have bought Naru a separate swimsuit. Good. I accept your challenge. He answered without thinking for a second. The sun, as always, shone brightly in the sky, giving everyone its warmth. The birds sang their learned songs, and the children who rejoiced in such wonderful weather were playing merrily outside. It seemed that such weather could cheer up anyone, but not Namake's Minato, who was sitting in his office and diligently writing some papers. Phew, finally finished with these papers. Now it remains only to agree with the Wave Country on this matter, and the contract can be considered valid. The fourth Hokage wearily voiced his thoughts aloud, mentally trying to relax from all these stacks of documents that had bored him all day. But before Minato had time to rest somehow, there was a knock on his office door. Come in, he answered formally as always, putting himself in order. Hearing the Hokage's answer, the door immediately creaked and a yellow head of hair became visible from under the crack. "San, are you busy right now?" asked the little copy of his father, looking into his office. "Soichi Naruto, don't worry, come in, I just have to finish soon," Namake Sr. said, visibly relaxing at the sight of Naruto, and not another messenger from another country. With the consent of his San, Namake's Jr. calmly entered the office and also sat on the soft sofa that stood to the right of the Hokage's desk. "Why did you call me San?" Naruto asked with restraint, trying to resemble his father. He roughly understood why the fourth Hokage called him to him. But he didn't want to show it. "As I know you're pretty good friends with Akatsuki Naruto," Minato immediately got down to business, not wanting to drag out the conversation for a long time. "Did she by any chance tell you anything about her past? Or about your family?" The Hokage began to interrogate his son. As Naruto suspected, Minato called him to his place to learn more about his sister and her past. But what should he say? If he tells the truth, then their family will finally become complete, as he had dreamed since childhood. But, will his sister be happy about it? At the same time, the carefree Akatsuki family had a day off, which, as always, they had fun and noisy. In company with the Uchiha family that invited them to the river. Now both families were busy with their own business. Someone was laying out pre-assembled things, someone was arguing with others, and someone was changing into a swimsuit. Naruto, as soon as Conan and I moved away from everyone, to my surprise, she immediately took out of the package a one-piece blue swimsuit with bows on the sides. "I thought you'd take that white two-piece swimsuit," I commented out loud, remembering how we tried to pick up a swimsuit for me for more than an hour. "Yes, but I thought this one was nicer. That's why I took it," she replied, as if she had learned this explanation on purpose. Strange, the thought flashed through my head at last. There was a feeling that she was not telling me something. Or is it just my imagination? "Are you there for a long time?" For the umpteenth time, Hayden's loud voice is heard, who, for some reason, wants to see me in a swimsuit as soon as possible. "We're on our way out," Conan shouted back at him, putting the finishing touches to my hairstyle, which she has been doing for like 10 minutes. "Well, there. Ready," she proudly declared, having finally finished doing my hair. "Thank you." I ran. I told her impatiently, after which I ran from everyone towards our bedspread, on which almost our entire family was sprawled together with the Uchiha, who were discussing something violently. I came. After catching my breath a little, I commented, happily looking at them. "Dear me. You're beautiful." Makoto-san, who was looking at me with all her might, suddenly praised me. "Thank you very much," I answered her, glad that others still liked it. "Wow. And my son's fiancé is what he needs," San Sasuke proudly and at the same time cheerfully declared. To which I looked at him in surprise, not understanding what he was talking about now. "You look very beautiful, Naruko-chan." As always, Itachi-san praised me with restraint. Thank you, ha ha ha. "And someone has lost 5 ri. Yes, Hayden?" Kisame's cheerful and mocking voice was heard in the direction of Haydn, who was very annoyed. Yes, I know. Just shut up. He answered him irritably, pretending that he was not there. What's going on? I asked myself, not knowing how to react to it. They argued with each other on the topic of which swimsuit you will wear. Sasori answered my question, which I don't understand where it came from. I clearly, well, what kind of little children? The thought flashed through my head, realizing that it was pointless to argue over such a trifle. By the way, where is Sasuke? I asked, noticing that the brunette was nowhere to be seen. He got sick, so he left for a while, but don't worry, he'll be back soon. Mikoto-san informed me with a slight smile. Is he okay? I asked excitedly, worried about my friend. He just had a nosebleed. So don't worry, it's nothing serious. Her husband and father Sasuke Fugaku-san answered instead of Mikoto-san. Then, okay, I said a little stiffly, trying to remember at what symptoms of the disease the nose suddenly bleeds, most likely sunstroke or overwork. I concluded my conclusions, remembering how I recently borrowed a book from Pain about medical ninjutsu, which said how to use it, with what symptoms, and so on. You're too naive, I heard the familiar voice of my red-haired friend in my subconscious. Oh. Kurama, you're awake. I said in surprise, not expecting the fox to wake up so quickly, because he usually sleeps so soundly that even if the village is attacked by robbers, he will not wake up. From your naive thoughts, everyone would wake up in my place, the nine-tailed wool rug replied. I'm sorry, I apologized guiltily, ignoring the fact that he called me naive. And finally, 20 minutes later, when everyone was already dressed, we all went swimming together. Who's the last one? He's cooking dinner tonight. Obito shouted and, without waiting for anyone, ran like a bullet into the water. That's not fair. Deidara shouted after him and together with Kisame and Haydn ran to Obito. Looking at the whole scene, I involuntarily smiled, sincerely glad that I have such a cheerful and friendly family. And yet I was lucky to have a family. Naruto? Aren't you going swimming? Sasuke's voice brought me out of my thoughts. From his unexpected appearance, I jumped aside. Only now I noticed that everyone else is already having fun in the water. Quickly pulling myself together, I decided to imperceptibly change the topic of conversation. Sasuke, wasn't it bad for you? I asked him, trying to carefully examine his face. As I thought, his nose was still slightly red. Most likely, he was trying to stop the nosebleed on his own. It's all right, the blood has already passed. He said, blushing a little, while turning away in the other direction. After standing like that for about 1 minute, I still decided to act. After all, I have already accepted the fact that I like him. Don't you want to go swimming with me? I asked him, pretending that I wasn't looking at him at all. At the same moment, he turned his head in my direction and stared at me in surprise. Are you sure? He asked, still looking at me as if I was the eighth wonder of the world. If you don't want to, just say so. I pouted at him as I walked forward. But it wasn't there. Before I could get even 2 meters away from him, he stopped me by taking my hand. Feeling that someone was holding me, I slowly turned my head. I want to. Sasuke answered confidently and without a drop of doubt, looking straight into my eyes. At the same time, I was looking into his black eyes, like the night itself. Then, shall we go? After all, I interrupted our pleasant idyll. Yes. Without a drop of doubt, he said, smiling a little. Seeing his smile, though not the brightest, but joyful, I smiled back at him myself. And pulling him by the hand towards the river, we both went swimming with everyone else. It was a warm evening, the air was light and fresh. It seemed to be light, but the night was already slowly covering the blue sky and the sun with its dark blue blanket. Naruto, when the sun slowly began to set over the horizon, we, together with the Uchi family, began to get ready to go home. After collecting all our things, we walked slowly towards the village. after a while, we finally got to Konoha. After passing several streets unfamiliar to me, to my surprise, we immediately came to the main street of the village, where it was quite livelied. I think it's time to say goodbye. Our block is in the other direction, so we'll leave first. If you don't mind, I think we could once again spend our time in your company like this. Stopping next to Pain, Fugaku said formally as always, holding out his hand for a handshake. Of course, we will gladly agree to spend our time in your company. Nagato answered him, shaking Sasuke's father's hand in a businesslike manner. See you soon, Naruto-chan. Mrs. Makoto told me with a smile on her face. Yeah, goodbye Makoto-san. I answered her, with the same sincere smile. See you soon, Naruto-chan. In his usual restrained manner, Itachi said, only smiling a little. To which I just nodded in response. Due to the fact that Fugaku-san was finally talking enthusiastically with Pain about something, I decided not to distract them and instead say goodbye to Sasuke. Are you going to kiss him goodbye? Kurama asked me with amusement in his voice and his subconscious, clearly mocking me. I blushed deeply at his sudden suggestion. No. I emotionally refused, to which the fox only began to laugh incessantly. Naruto? Someone called me by name in the real world. Leaving Kurama alone in the subconscious, I hurriedly turned in the direction from where I heard the voice. Turning around, I saw Sasuke in front of me, looking at me with a puzzled look. Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking a little. I hurried to explain to him so that he would not think anything superfluous. Well, I just wanted to tell you that. I'll see you tomorrow at the academy. Ada's Uchiha Jr. said, all the time breaking off in mid-sentence. Before I could say anything at all, he immediately took me in his arms. But less than 5 seconds later, he immediately broke off the embrace and ran somewhere into the crowd. At that time, I was just looking at the Uchi leaving in that direction in bewilderment. I would have been standing in one place if I hadn't heard the dissatisfied cry of my whole family. They started arguing about something again. Not wanting to listen to their next arguments at all, I moved towards our house. I went ahead. Catch up. I shouted to them, speeding up my pace even more. After some time, we finally reached our beloved home. And so, when we wanted to go home, a stranger in a mask suddenly appeared out of nowhere in front of us. Are you the Akatsuki family? He asked us, walking slowly in our direction. Yes, did you want something? Pain replied, stepping out ahead of us. At the same moment, we were suddenly surrounded by several of the same masked people, behind whom there were several types of cold weapons. And the heavy ki that was around them only showed that these people were not ordinary shinobi. You are accused of attacking the village and of kidnapping a child Hokage, he said in a firm voice. Hearing his words, I fell into shock. It was like I was struck by lightning. Oh, how did they know about this? I asked myself this question. Pain, despair, shock, all these emotions overwhelmed me now. I just felt like I was getting depressed by the second. Naru. Take it easy. Everything will be fine. Kurama's worried voice kept telling me that he was trying to calm me down. But even his support or words could not make me wake up from these feelings. After a while, I was still able to calm down and force myself to open my previously closed eyes. After a thorough investigation, we can most likely say that the current Akatsuki Naruto is the daughter of the current Namikaze Minato, the 4th Hokage of our village. We also have a witness who can confirm the above words. I heard the words of that man in the mask immediately after I opened my long closed eyes. After these words, the yellow head of hair, already familiar to me, slowly began to come out from behind his back. And Naruto? I could barely hear myself saying, desperately looking into exactly the same sky, blue eyes. The sun was slowly sinking below the horizon, smoothly giving way to millions of bright stars and the moon illuminating at night. Residents of the village of Konoha, who were now in the fresh air, hurried to their homes after seeing impenetrable gray rain clouds in the sky. And it was in this lively crowd that one could notice a long-haired blonde running fast, in whose eyes bitter tears of resentment and sadness flowed. Naruto, ignoring the surprised looks of passers-by, my legs carried me in a direction I didn't understand. Everything swam before my eyes because of the tears frozen in them, and my thoughts were desperately confused, remembering only one picture. Why? Why? For what? I didn't seem to hear anything. Not the noise in this crowd, not the cries of kurama in the subconscious. All I could do now was run where my feet lead and remember every minute of my life spent together with my real family. Naruto. Naru. Listen to me. Akatsuki is fine. They were just taken to prison and... The fox tried to reach me in a worried voice, but I didn't even want to listen to him. I unconsciously began to scroll through very recent memories again, flashback, and Naruto? I could barely hear myself saying, desperately looking into exactly the same sky, blue eyes. I'm sorry. I couldn't watch you smile and call them your family. They attacked our village. And stole you. If it wasn't for them, you would have lived with us from the very beginning, with your real family. Clenching his fists to whiteness, shouted at the top of his voice, to me, my brother? No. Naruto Namikaze. My family didn't even think to resist. I looked at them with eyes already red from tears, and they just put handcuffs on them that blocked the entire chakra and wanted to take them somewhere. And no. Don't leave. Please don't leave me alone. I said, lowering my head down so that they wouldn't see my tears. Naruto, don't worry. We'll be fine. We will simply be interrogated, and then after a while they will let us go. And while we're gone, keep an eye on the house. Nagato informed me with a faint smile on his face, which is why I still had to raise my head in their direction. And don't forget to eat normal food. In the morning it will be best to cook some porridge, and in the evening rice with meat. And don't take long walks. Otherwise, you'll get sick. Conan said to me in a worried voice, this time, looking in a completely different direction, as if hiding her face from me. And no boys. I'll cut the hell out of one if I see one. Haydn spoke, as always in an undeniable voice, flashing his angry eyes. Don't forget to train too. Kakuzu added his word to the conversation in a sad voice. Blow up the Hokage residence there from me, maybe it will teach them something. Burning with his gaze the masked Umbu that had been with them all this time, Deidara told me. Deidara. What are you teaching a child? Conan shouted angrily at him, showing everyone her red face from tears. What's the big deal? Let them think about who to contact next time. Deidara answered her, completely not understanding her anger. Even now, they are still trying to behave as usual. Like, my family, a thought flashed through my mind. In my room, there are several puppets. I wanted to give them to you for your birthday, but apparently not fate. Take care of yourself and be a good girl while we're gone. Sasori informed me with a sweet smile. Well, don't be the same as Haydn. Kisame didn't say much to me this time, probably not knowing what else to say. What did you say there, fish head? Yes, I'll give you to your own fish for lunch. I am the best example for Naru. Is that clear? Haydn said, looking directly at Kisame, thereby assuring him of the truthfulness of his words. Yes. Not wanting to listen to Haydn's angry tirade, Kisame surrendered. I want you to study well and behave yourself. After all, but you are Akatsuki Naruto. With a small smile on his face, Zetsu uttered his wish. And now, it's the last turn to say your wish, Abito. So I'll be the last one. Naruto, initially we only wanted to use you for our own purposes. We wanted to, but you changed us. You not only reminded us all what it means to be a family, but also showed us what it means to love and take care of someone. Therefore, I know for sure that in the future you will become a very strong kunoichi. I just hope that you won't forget us and hate us. After all, we all want you to find your happiness." Toby finished for everyone, looking at me with a sad smile rather than a joyful one. All these words made me sad at heart. I always heard their joyful wishes addressed to me on my birthday, but now their words seemed to say that this was our last meeting for several months, years, and maybe even forever. From this understanding, I wanted to roar at the top of my voice. But I don't want them to see my tears. Just not now. Before I could notice, they all disappeared with Umbu in a cloud of smoke. Which is why I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. My salty tears were streaming down my cheeks, and I was only looking at where my family had been standing only recently. I don't know how long I would have stood there if I hadn't been disturbed by someone's female voice that came from behind me. "Naruto." Slowly turning my head, I saw in front of me a woman with long red hair and violet, blue eyes. There were tears in her eyes too, but not of sadness, but rather of joy. Next to her were two blonde men with blue eyes, one of whom also had tears of happiness. When I saw them, I immediately realized who it was. But before I could say anything to them, I was immediately wrapped in a tight embrace. "Naruko, my daughter, how glad I am that you are all right. I'm so happy to finally see you." Hugging me with all her might, as if I was about to disappear, Kushina whispered some words in my ear, sobbing into my shoulder. Her embrace was warm. It was as if she wanted to reassure me, to assure me that everything would be fine now. She radiated such warmth that I wanted to forget myself and plunge into it. But, no. She's not a member of my family. My consciousness kept telling me, even though my body itself was drawn to her, everything will be fine now, we will live together like a real family. And the Akatsuki will pay for stealing you, our sunshine, Kushina kept telling me, burrowing into my shoulder. Her words sent goosebumps through my body, and my eyes widened even more. At the same moment, without thinking, I immediately pushed her away from me with all my strength. Don't you dare lay a finger on my family!" I shouted at them. This time it was their turn to widen their eyes in surprise. "Naruko," the fourth Hokage wanted to tell me something, but I immediately interrupted him. "No. I have never been and will never be your daughter. Even if you are my biological parents, it doesn't mean anything. I will forever remain Akatsuki Naruko, and period." Shouting with all my might, I tried to convey to them. But looking directly at them, joyful memories from Akatsuki began to appear before my eyes, which is why new tears began to appear in my eyes. Not wanting to see the faces of these three at all, I calmly went in their direction in order to escape away from this place. "I'll deal with you later, Namikaze Naruto," I said in a cold voice, deliberately touching the shoulder of my now familiar, and then I ran away. I ran away from them, from what happened and, from my weakness to stand up for my family. The end of the flashback. The bright morning sun was rising from the horizon, starting to warm the earth with its rays, giving everyone its warmth and light. Strong gusts of wind shook and swayed the branches of the trees from side to side, as if playing with them. Crowds of people gradually filled the streets of Konoha village, drowning out the bizarre bird songs with their sounds. Under one of the big trees, not far from the village itself, a girl of no great age was sleeping. Her blonde strands of hair that were all in the dirt and in the foliage of the trees fell right on her face, slightly covering her sunken cheeks, on which 6 small stripes were visible. Her black eyelashes fluttered all the time, and her eyebrows did not stop frowning. Her whole face was deathly pale, as if there was no blood coming to it at all, and only the red hue around her eyes spoke at least about something. A strong gust of wind blew again, making the blonde shiver from the cold. At the same moment, her still sleepy eyes opened, revealing to the world the sad blue of her eyes. Naruko, instead of waking up in my warm bed from the gentle stroking of Conan's hands on my head, I woke up from a cold gust of wind. My whole body was shaking from the cold, and even ordinary everyday clothes did not save me. Squinting slightly from the sunlight that shone into my eyes, I slowly looked around. There was a lot of vegetation and trees around me, under one of which I was lying right now. The realization that I was in the forest, that I was not far from Konoha herself, calmed me down a little. It's much better than being with Namikaze, the only thought slipped through my mind. My eyes began to sting again just from the memory of what happened yesterday. Even though I was crying desperately most of the night, I couldn't stop doing it. The pain began to echo in my chest again, and memories overwhelmed me. Behind my memories, I didn't even immediately notice how something soft and warm covered me, protecting me from the cold. You'll get so cold if you keep sitting on the cold ground. A familiar, slightly growling voice told me, trying to wrap me even more in warm fur. Turning my head in the direction of the interlocutor, I found a small ball of fluffy fur next to me, which turned out to be a bright red fox that tried to warm me with its fur. His half-closed red eyes carefully examined me from head to toe, and the soft fur warmed my shivering body from the cold. Kurama, as if I couldn't believe my eyes, I whispered, looking in surprise at the nine-tailed fox that was now in front of me in its little version. Despite the fact that my throat hurt a lot, and my voice was terribly hoarse, Kurama was still able to hear my whispered, "I'm here, little one. No matter what, I will stay by your side." The fox suddenly said in his gentle voice, looking straight into my eyes with a serious face. For a few seconds, it even seemed to me that there were sparks of sadness and longing in his eyes. But as soon as I blinked, they seemed to be blown away by the wind. And only a certain determination was visible at the bottom of his scarlet, blood-like eyes. His words were echoing in my head more and more every second. These words made me want to cry again, burying my face right into the warm and fluffy fur, but this time not out of despair, but out of gratitude. Out of gratitude that he calms a weakling like me, helps, supports, and does not throw into the abyss of darkness. "Thank you," I whispered back to him again, barely audible, still burying my forehead in his red fur. At the same moment, the world seemed to stop for me. I felt as soft and warm as I really was at home. I no longer heard anyone's voices, or the wind whistling in some places. I didn't even notice how I was finally able to calmly close my eyes, peacefully falling asleep, and not sobbing until my throat ached, falling unconscious. The end of Naruto. At the same time, the entire Namikaze family was sitting in the office of the 4th Hokage in full force. The atmosphere in the office was not the best. Even with the naked eye you could see all the awkwardness between them. All their faces were tired, which indicated that no one could sleep properly that night. It was especially scary to look at the younger Namikaze, Naruto, who did not even bother his parents with his gaze, all the time looking only at the floor and thinking about something of his own. After some more time, the silence between them was finally interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. "I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, I'm here to report to you." A man's voice spoke outside the door. Only after hearing about the report, Minato could not cope with his body trembling. His voice treacherously did not want to speak, and his blue eyes began to run excitedly around the office. And judging by his wife's trembling shoulders, she didn't feel any better either. And only the little blonde did not react to this in any way, silently looking still at the floor. Come in." Konoha's yellow lightning hurriedly said, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Having received permission, a man dressed in Umbu uniform entered the office, without hesitation. "Did you find her?" almost immediately asked that Hokage, as soon as the man crossed the threshold of the room. "No. Wherever we look for her in the village, she is not. The only thing we haven't checked yet is the nearby woods, as well as their house. But getting into this house turned out to be much more difficult than we imagined. There is a reliable barrier around the house. It will take us some time to remove it," the member of the Umbu cautiously slowly told him, carefully watching the reaction of Minato and his wife, who only after hearing his words began to cry silently, burying her face in her palms. The only thing that Umbu did not understand in this situation was the behavior of the Hokage's son. Now the cheerful little hurricane of troubles was no longer sitting in front of him. Instead of him, it was as if another person was sitting there, who with his glass eyes could make anyone shiver from the cold in these blue pools. Okay, you can go. If there is any news, let me know right away. Namake Sr. ordered Tom with undisguised sadness in his voice, interrupting Umbu himself from looking at the faces of their family. It will be executed. In response, the masked man bowed slightly and no longer lingering in one place, hurriedly left the office of the fourth Hokage. There was a deathly silence in the room again, accompanied by barely audible sobs from Kushina. All they had to do was wait. And when they finally find Naruto, they will be fine again. The four of them will live in their house. They will finally be able to become a full-fledged loving family after so many years, even if it costs them the trust of their daughter. After all, they are her real family and no matter what, they should be together. So why are those words she said all the time spinning in my head, causing each of them unbearable pain? No. Naruto just doesn't understand what she's doing yet, and they just have to help her. Right? The sun has been shining for a long time in the sky covered with white clouds. It was day outside. And the wind was still blowing strongly from side to side, shaking both the branches and the foliage of the trees themselves. Nothing seems to have changed, everything is the same as an ordinary day in Konoha, but no matter how much the townspeople of the village did not want to notice it, they still could not help noticing a lot of members of the Umbu that went around the village to look for something or someone. And that's what they were worried about. Could it be that something bad has happened? Naruto. I woke up a few hours later in the same position in which I fell asleep. Kurama was still warming me next to him with his soft fur, and the cold wind mercilessly swayed the branches of the tree under which we were lying in an embrace. My eyes were still sleepily closing, wanting to sleep a little longer, but my mind was clearly telling me to wake up. Get some more sleep, you slept for a few hours at most, the fox told me sternly, noticing my awakening. Unlike me, Kurama can be seen not sleeping at all during this time, all the time carefully watching our surroundings. Kurama, what should I do? After a while, I said slowly because of the lingering pain in my throat, finally more or less coming to my senses. I don't know why, but I felt that during this time my friend certainly thought something over my situation. He always did. When I needed to be alone, he always left me alone with him. During this time, he had time to think about a lot of things. And when it was necessary to support me, he rushed to me without hesitation, calming me down. However, like everyone else, don't worry, we will definitely save them. The red-haired friend assured me, resolutely looking straight into my eyes. And I knew for sure that he was not lying, but telling the pure truth, which came straight from his heart. But how? We will definitely not be able to cope alone, so we just have to ask someone for help. Someone who has enough power to help us. The fox explained to me, thinking about something for a while, and then it dawned on me what Kurama is thinking hard about now. The one who can help us, the one who is certainly familiar with Akatsuki and has the power. But after all, their family did not have any acquaintances or friendships before Konoha. The only ones who fit this category are Uchiha, but I don't want to involve them in this. We need to find someone else who will certainly not refuse their help. For several minutes we were constantly thinking and remembering all those with whom Akatsuki were familiar. Uchiha. Umbu, the third Hokage, who else can? Thinking for a second about our past, I suddenly remembered about one not the most pleasant person. About one slippery person, as Haydn himself once called him. He can help us, that's just, I was told never to contact him. This person can easily deceive me, but he is the only one who can help. I mentally told myself, still not completely sure of this choice. But what choice do I have, Kurama? I know who can help us. I exclaimed almost in the fox's ear, interrupting him from his thoughts. Kurama, in response, looked at me in surprise, waiting for my next words. It can help us, Naruto, Kurama. I know who can help us. I exclaimed almost in the fox's ear, interrupting him from his thoughts. Kurama, in response, looked at me in surprise, waiting for my next words. "We can help that snake," I said slowly, carefully watching the change in the fox's reaction in front of me, wanting to know his opinion as soon as possible. Kurama didn't react at all to my words. For a while, my friend just stared at me uncomprehendingly with his bright red eyes, in which surprise could clearly be seen. But this reaction did not last long. Apparently realizing who I'm talking about now, the next moment a bright feeling of contempt and anger distorted on his face. His whole appearance spoke of his good attitude towards this man. Yes, no way in the world. I'm against it. To ask for help from this crazy madman? Never. Kurama growled back at me in a rough voice, baring his sharp fangs for showed. It was only when I heard his low growling voice that I realized how much the fox dislikes the snake. Although, what else to expect from someone who literally almost put him on a research table in a creepy laboratory? Even before I was 6 years old, there was another person in Akatsuki at that time. I don't remember his face exactly, but he always walked around in his dark robes, more like women's clothes. His skin was pale white like the corpse itself, and his eyes looked like snakes, ready to pounce on you at any second. His name was like Orochimaru. At that time, no one knew either his goals or motives. All the time he was in his laboratory, he had almost no contact with other members of the Akatsuki organization, but as soon as he noticed me in his field of vision, he did not hesitate to ask Pain to allow him to conduct several experiments with my restraining seal. But in the end, he still left Akatsuki and never returned there. My whole family told me never to trust Orochimaru. For the sake of his goal, to gain immortality, a mad scientist will do anything, and especially to get a 9-tailed fox demon into his hands. But I have no choice anymore. All I have to do is ask for help from this snake. Kurama, I don't think anyone else can help us, I said slowly, deliberately turning away from the fox in the other direction, just not to see his angry expression frozen on his face. Do you really think this psycho is going to help us? Naruto, don't be naive. He would do anything to get immortality, even if it would cost several thousand lives. My red-haired friend also growled angrily, which was clearly against the alternative of coming to the beast's lair, to be torn to pieces by themselves. At his words, I could only be silent quietly, without making a sound. I understood that everything he said was true, but he also had to understand me. There was a deathly silence between us, which pressed down on us with its weight, making us feel out of place. And only the sounds of birds in the distance, in the very depths of the forest, were barely audible, diluting our atmosphere. But no matter how much I wanted to say something to remove this silence between us, no words came to mind. Okay, if this nutcase can help us, then I agree, the 9-tailed man whispered almost audibly with a doomed look, the very first to destroy this awkward silence between us. Abruptly turning my head to Kurama, I could not believe my hearing and looked in surprise at the fox, who had all his dissatisfaction written on his face. Kurama, you better shut up, little one. This does not mean that he will help us. If I see that he has bad plans for us, then we will immediately go back, okay? With anger towards this Orochimaru, my friend interrupted me, setting his condition. Realizing that Kurama literally just agreed with my idea, I immediately lit up with genuine happiness. The bad mood disappeared like a hand, and a bright smile spread on my face at the same second. I didn't even really have time to notice how I rushed to hug him in happiness. Kurama. Thanks. I promise I won't let you down, I whispered, hugging the little ball of fur in my arms with even more force. In response, I could hear the fox muttering something resentfully in my arms, obediently pressing his face against me. People in the village were all in a hurry somewhere. Despite the fact that it was day outside, they still packed their things in a hurry and went to their homes as soon as possible. This was especially noticeable on the street, where wherever you looked, you could see several groups of Konoha village ninjas that were clearly looking for something important. Watching all the people from the shade of the nearest tree, I realized that these ninjas are looking for me. This was also confirmed by the security guards present near our house. Do you think I can get into the house unnoticed? I asked mentally, turning to the fox that was currently resting in my subconscious. Brightly, there are several sensors among them. Although they are not so strong in detecting the chakra at a distance, but if you approach them within a few meters, they will immediately find you. But since there is a protective barrier around the house, in this case no one but you can enter the house, I think you can use it. But I don't think this barrier will last long. Therefore, we need to hurry if we want to leave the village unnoticed. Kurama told his point of view in detail, still carefully studying my surroundings. At the moment, due to my weakened state, I could not control myself normally. It felt like if I tried to put the seals into some kind of technique now, I probably wouldn't be able to do half of it right. So all I had to do was trust Kurama completely. What about the holes in their defenses? I asked him, also inspecting all the ninjas that guard the house. They all guard the house strictly around the perimeter. The only way to get into the house is through the window of the second floor in your room. The fox answered me in a serious voice. From his words, I involuntarily looked towards the window on the second floor, through which I can immediately get to my room. As I noticed, the window was not closed, on the contrary, it was slightly ajar, and yet it's good that I forgot to close the window behind me yesterday. A thought quickly flashed through my head, almost immediately getting lost in the pile of others. After a while, I noticed how one of the ninjas who was guarding the perimeter under my window was suddenly distracted by a conversation with another, giving me a chance to get inside. It's time. Kurama and I voiced our thoughts in chorus immediately. Without thinking about anything, I rushed towards the house with all my strength. To make me move faster, Kurama willingly shared his chakra with me, pouring it into my legs. But no matter how fast I moved, I was still quickly noticed. Look. It's her. Grab her. I heard the strange voice of one of those ninjas who noticed how I had almost reached the territory of the house. I didn't even have time to do anything, as the silhouette of one of them immediately appeared in front of my eyes. Damn. Seeing the man in front of me concentrating his chakra in the palm of my hand, I began to expect his subsequent blow to me. But I certainly did not expect that instead of hitting me, the blow would follow on the ground below us. I barely managed to jump away from the place where a small deep hole was now formed, covered with cracks. I had just felt the solid ground under my feet when I noticed that these people had already surrounded me from 3 sides. Give up, we won't hurt you. The man who was taller than everyone said in a firm voice, their commander can be seen. Sweat dripped slowly from me, my heart was beating wildly with fear, and my eyes were diverging in all directions. And in my head there was only a fog. In such a situation I could only look around in the hope of finding a gap in their defense. Naruto. When I tell you, you'll have to run, do you understand me? Kurama declared in my subconscious in a voice that did not require any objections. Even despite his serious tone, I could still hear the notes of concern and fear for me in him. But, no buts. About 3, you should run towards the house. I will try to distract them at this time. The fox explained to me, giving clear instructions. In the next second, as if he understood my objections, Kurama began to count down the allotted time. 1, 2, 3. When the countdown reached 3, a red poisonous fox chakra began to appear in front of my eyes from all sides, and it began to blur in my eyes. Not paying attention to those ninjas, I ran with all my strength towards the house. Damn it. She's running away, hold her. A man's voice shouted after me. But it was too late, because by that time I had already crossed an invisible barrier and concentrating the chakra in my legs, I quickly overcame the wall, entering the house through the window. The first thing I did when I got to my room I immediately began rummaging through my closet with clothes. In a hurry, I began to put all the things I needed into a small travel bag. Throwing a bag full of things over my shoulder, I ran to the first floor to the kitchen in order to take some food with me on the road. In the kitchen I found many different dishes specially packed in containers. It's good that Conan still made more food than she should have, a thought ran through my head. Without hesitation, I put the food in the same bag. Naruto, hurry up! The people outside are now joining all their forces trying to destroy the barrier. The barrier under their onslaught won't last that long. Kurama warned me about the situation outside. Okay, I agreed with him, heading this time towards Nagato's office. As I thought, Pain's office was securely protected, I just couldn't get in there. Try using blood. The fox suggested to me in my subconscious. As Kurama said, I bit my finger until it bled, and later slowly brought it to the door. As soon as my blood touched the door, some strange drawings began to appear on it, but after a while, the door still creaked open in front of me. And as soon as I went inside, the door immediately closed with a bang. Wow, it's clear that this seal was put by Pain himself. I mentally drew a conclusion from what I saw. Besides me, Nagato also had the blood of the Uzumaki clan, and they were known to be very good at seals. Shoving my thoughts far away so that they would not distract me, I began to look for at least some information about a man named Orochimaru. There were a lot of different books in this office. Only by taking one of them in my hands I found the A-rank technique, which is called Rasengan. It was only after reading a little about her that I realized that I should definitely need her in the future. Putting it in my bag, too, I began to look for what I needed again, but no matter how much I searched, I could not find anything. Only the technicians were here. I was about to hand it over when my attention was suddenly attracted by a scroll that was lying right on the table in the middle of the room. Unfolding the scroll, I realized that all someone's movements were written here, and all actions were described in detail under it. Maybe for someone else this scroll was useless, but not for me, because this scroll describes all the actions of none other than Orochimaru. I found it! I exclaimed joyfully in my mind. I would have liked to study this scroll carefully, when suddenly I felt the whole house shuddered. What, Naruto? Urgently run away from there. The barrier has just been destroyed. Kurama shouted loudly to me in an excited voice in my subconscious. As I was told, without thinking for a long time, I quickly picked up all the scrolls that I might also like on the road and stuffed them into a bag full of things. Since the barrier was removed, I no longer had the opportunity to safely leave the house through the main door, so all that remained for me was to use the window again. This time, no one even thought to stop me from escaping through the window. The only thing that was heard outside the door was a lot of different voices in the house that were running around in a hurry and inspecting the whole house. Here the door is closed on the seal of blood. Most likely the girl is inside. A woman's voice exclaimed outside the door. But I no longer paid attention to anyone, jumping through the window into the street. As soon as my feet touched the earth's surface, I ignored the surprised looks of passers-by and ran with all my remaining strength towards a crowded street in order to hide from them in a crowd of other people. Even when my legs cramped from fatigue and I fell to the ground, I didn't stop and kept running. Hurry up! She ran towards that dead end. The voices of the chase still followed me everywhere. All I could hope for in this situation was that they would be stopped at least for a while by a large crowd of people. Turning the corner to finally disappear, I suddenly noticed that I was at a dead end. Turning back in the direction from which I came, I was about to be safe, when I again heard someone's voices that claimed that I ran in this direction. The realization that I was about to be caught suddenly darkened my eyes. No. I don't want to. I repeated to myself in oblivion, watching as the black shadows slowly, as if enjoying my reaction, began to come closer to the turn behind which the dead end itself was. My heart was racing with fear again, and salty tears involuntarily appeared in my eyes. And so I stood and stared straight ahead, still not believing in what was happening, as if I was waiting for the turn to the scaffold, but I certainly did not expect that in the next moment someone would grab me by the hand, pulling me somewhere in the dark side, where there was a very bad view. Catching me by surprise, I stood motionless for a while, feeling the strong ring of hands on me, until I realized what position I was in. Without thinking about anything, I began to resist with all my might against this man, who was about my height. My hands beat hard on his body until I heard his breathing, choked with pain. "You calm down. I won't hurt you, better try to hide your chakra." The stranger spoke in a hoarse voice, finally suppressing the blood gushing from his mouth. His voice immediately seemed very familiar to me, so familiar that I involuntarily trusted him, trying to hide the presence of my chakra. "Where is she? Didn't she run here? I definitely felt her presence here." "Most likely she deceived us, damn it. Don't let her get far away." With each passing second, those voices became fainter and fainter, until finally they stopped being heard at all. From this I realized that I still managed to get rid of them. And finally I was able to breathe easy. Until I remembered my savior again. At the same moment, I pulled away from his steel hands with all my strength, just to look at the man who saved me from the chase, but only when I saw the face of this savior, I stared at him in shock. "Keikiba?" To be continued. Naruto right now, a boy my age, was looking at me with short brown hair that was in disarray, piercing black eyes and red fangs on his cheeks, which gave him an even more wild look. Despite his fearless and confident appearance, one could clearly see the uncertainty in his actions in his eyes. "Hurry up. She should be here." Someone's rough voice was heard very close by, calling others. Hearing the voices that came very close to us, I did not hesitate to focus on hiding my chakra as soon as possible. "Please, I wish there wasn't a censor among them." A thought flashed through my head, before trying my best to hide my chakra, just like Sasori once taught me this, and it can be seen from the excited look of Kiba. He thought the same thing. It didn't take long before the sound of footsteps faded away, as if there was no chase, but we knew perfectly well that they were still nearby. Like predators waiting for their prey, and as if to confirm this, someone's shadow appeared next to our shelter. From this silhouette, one could immediately see that it was the figure of a man. And judging by his clothes and wolf mask, he was clearly a member of the Umbu. With every second that the shadow approached us, it seemed to me as if my heart was about to stop from fear. I didn't want to think about what would happen to me next. The only thing I regretted was coming to this village. If it wasn't for that, I would be the happiest child in the world right now, with my loving family. Why me? While my heart was being torn apart, tears came to my eyes. Hate, how I hate them. If only I was stronger. My body was shaking with mental pain, and apparently noticing my condition, Inuzuka, trying to calm me down with all his might, began gently stroking me on the back, expressing his support. "I need so much now." By the time I was cursing all the people responsible for this case, the figure of a man had been standing near us for a long time, looking only in our direction. He found us. This is the end. This thought flashed in the back of my mind, making me even more nervous because of what my breathing could not come back to normal in any way. "She's here. What are you waiting for?" Someone's dissatisfied voice was heard not far from us. Exactly. She must have hidden behind that tank. So let's catch her." With every word, all my hopes for salvation crumbled like broken glass. "Excuse me, I've let you down again." At the moment when I was about to voluntarily come out of hiding and surrender, the man who had been standing next to us all this time finally spoke. "She's not here. Most likely, someone helped her escape. Search the nearest streets as soon as possible." From these words, I fell into shock. What? And did he really not notice us? With every second another crazy thought came to my head, which each time more and more haunted me. Is this person really not noticing us, or is he just pretending? But why would he do that? Could it be that he, a friend of my family? Or is it Hokage's assistant? "Captain, are you sure she's not here? We saw for sure that she..." One of the subordinates of this shadow began to speak, clearly showing his distrust in his direction. You don't believe me? Should I consider this a betrayal of our village? After all, but I'm a loyal assistant to the fourth Hokage, and you don't trust me? Does this mean that you also don't trust our Hokage? Captain Umbu immediately interrupted him, not wanting to stand on ceremony with his subordinates anymore. He released his ki on them, so that they turned pale at the same second. And no. What are you? We trust you. And why are you all up? Get to work now. At the same moment, this man, feeling the suffocating ki, immediately changed his color and again became a loyal subordinate under the leadership of the captain. And that made me sick. I hate people who grovel in front of others, especially because of their status. Suppressing the feelings that appeared in myself, I realized that the crowd that had previously surrounded the only way out of this impasse retreated, running to carry out the orders of its captain, and now hope has settled in my soul. I have to get out of here. I have to save my family. She must become strong no matter what. It remains only to wait for this person to leave, I thought, still feeling the presence of the person who helped us next to us. But instead of waiting in his hiding place for a long time, the man suddenly began to walk away towards the exit from the impasse. Phew, it's gone. That's lucky for us. A joyful thought appeared in my mind that it was also suddenly interrupted by our savior. Instead of running from the main exit of the village, it would be best to escape from the forest. There are much fewer patrolmen there. The stranger said in the same even voice, calmly walking towards the exit from the dead end. And when there was already quite a bit left to leave, he stopped abruptly. Maybe Minato-sensei did the wrong thing by forcing you to come back, but you, too, Naruto-chan, understand him. He's been looking for his daughter for too long. And what did he feel when he found her in a group of people that stole her from him? Think about it. I didn't have time to realize what I heard, as the male voice abruptly faded away. It's not clear why, but I suddenly found myself looking straight in the direction where a man had been standing just recently. Think about it. What should I think about? He wanted to drag me away by force to his family. He separated me from my family. It's his fault. So why should I forgive him? And I didn't care that he was my own father. I didn't care about my real family. Yes. I certainly don't need such a family, but, from these words, something deep inside me shrank. But does it really matter? I already have a loving family, and I don't need anyone else. Trying to convince myself of this, I did not notice the sharp look of the black eyes that had been watching me closely all this time. Akatsuki, what is your connection with the current Hokage? Right in the forehead, without hesitation, Kiba suddenly asked me, watching my reaction. And this question froze me in place for a few seconds. What connects us? Well, except for blood, nothing more. But no matter how much I wanted to express it to him, for some reason my tongue did not turn to say it at all. What? Seeing my indecision and fear on my face, he just shook his head in different directions. Naruto, we're friends, right? Of course friends. Who else? I came to myself, looking with resolute eyes at the representative of the Inuzuka clan in front of me. Then, Akatsuki, promise to remember this. Whatever happens, we will remain friends. And if you forget, then I will direct Akamaru at you. His whole appearance spoke of his seriousness, and especially his eyes. Sasori once told me that a person's eyes are a reflection of his soul. Before that, I thought Kiba was a very cheerful and active boy, which can cheer anyone up at any second, but now, looking into his eyes, I realized that he can also be serious, responsible. And as if to confirm his words, Akamaru barked next to us. These words somehow made me feel better. Yes, it's still good to have a friend like Kiba. Thank you very much, Kiba, Akamaru. I won't forget. I will always remember such a good friend and his wonderful dog. With a slight smile on my face, I spoke from the bottom of my heart. Yes, I won't forget you. I believe that we will meet again soon. And then, as before, we will make fun and joke about the rest. In the meantime, thank you. Looking at Konoha in front of me, I couldn't help but remember all those happy moments. In this place I met people dear to me, she became a student of the academy, and even if I haven't lived here since I was born, it felt like I was here from the very beginning. The moments I experienced here were unforgettable, but before that, I didn't even want to come here. Sadness, happiness, betrayal, joy, I could feel all these emotions in this place. And to be honest, it was kind of a shame to leave this place, but I'm sure I'll be back here again. For the sake of your family, for the sake of your friends, for Sasuke's sake. Interesting, will he be sad when he finds out I'm gone? Or maybe he will be glad that he got rid of me. There are so many thoughts in my head about this, but I didn't want him to be sad, I wanted him to smile as before. It's a pity I couldn't say goodbye to him. I hope during this time he will not forget me. I'll be back. One day I will come back here to free my family. Maybe by this time we will become enemies, but still, I want to see him happy. Taking one last look in the direction of the village hidden in the foliage, I abruptly turned my head towards the forest, and on my legs trembling from weakness, I ran forward with all my strength just to get far away from here and not look back, and then I'll figure out where to go next. The main thing is not to be persecuted, otherwise, there will be trouble. That's the end of it.